What is going on, everybody? It is episode 196 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. I am here with my co-host. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, Crisis Actors. It's Mary. I'm excited to be here with you on a casual Friday, and we have a special new guest that you haven't seen before.
We do have a new guest. Would you introduce yourself, sir?
I will. I am Wesley. I am the director of Cast Castle.
How you doing?
I am happy to be here.
Having fun?
He's psyched.
He's
He
psyched?
said it
Yeah.
before
He's
we
psyched?
were
I
live.
did say
Pull the
psych.
mic up towards you a little bit.
I shall.
Yeah, yes. All
How
right,
was
there
that?
we go. That is perfect.
All right. Or I could talk louder.
Either
Or both.
Either or. Yeah.
Either
I'll do
or.
that.
Either or. So we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. We are going to review the Rings of Power. And before we get started, I say, don't just wait.
Don't hate us. That's all we're going to say.
We're going to do that. We are going to talk about the continuing trend of Hollywood doomsday prophecies, which is becoming a hilarious trend that I feel like is going to become a segment on this show beyond just reporting it when it happens. Who this week is part of the, here at this place, it's about civil war. Here elsewhere,
Don't we know?
it's about the end of the world. So we're going to get there, guys. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about Olivia Wilde, and she has a new boogeyman for her movie. It's a big, scary person. Maybe you've heard of him. His name's Jordan Peterson. He's very scary, very scary. We're going to get into it. So if you guys are ready, we will just go for it. Mary, are we ready?
We're ready.
Wesley, are we ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we reviewed Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and
Guys, it wasn't bad.
I'm gonna
Shocking,
preface,
I know.
I'm gonna preface and say I am not a Lord of the Rings aficionado. I'm not a Tolkien fan. I am acutely aware of what these actors have done to ruin this process leading up to the show coming out, and they've done everything in their power to make it awful. But I am not judging this based on being a Tolkien adaptation.
I'm not an aficionado
Yes.
either. Wesley, are you? Where do you stand on that?
I would not call myself an aficionado, but I do love like the Silmarillion.
Okay.
And I am a fan of the films. Okay. I read the books growing up, but they weren't super important to me.
Do you like all of the films?
Not The Hobbit.
Yeah, some people really hated the Hobbit movies.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those at all. They have their moments, but as a whole, no.
Let's get ratings.
Out of what?
Out of 10.
Out of 10?
Oh. Tough.
Maybe we should do 5 stars. What do you think?
3.5.
Oh.
3.5 is high.
3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say 3.75.
Okay.
3.75.
I was thinking more like 2.5 or a 3.
Yep. I'm basing it on how few times I paused it during the show.
How many times you felt like running away?
Yeah, which was very,
Which
very,
is usually
very
a
limited.
lot.
Yeah, so I understand that this is not Lord of the Rings, so you do not need to.
It's essentially fan fiction, and I would like for it to be regarded that way and not as part of the canon.
So let's treat it as something that's not Lord of the Rings and just something we're watching to watch.
But because they're making it as a contribution to the canon of this universe, I feel like it should be judged on the merit of that.
Okay, then it's bad.
It is fan fiction,
yes,
essentially about Middle Earth, because it's like 3,000 years behind the rest of the stories that people are familiar with.
I will say that Galadriel is the absolute weakest length of this show. Length?
You think?
I think she's absolutely the worst part of the show.
She had some of the most screen time.
Yes, and she was the worst part of the show. Whenever the show was on Bronwyn, who I really, 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 really liked. Whenever the show was on, what was the other, the guy?
Thank you.
So whenever the show was on Bronwyn, I really, really liked. Whenever the show was on, what's his name? Elrond. I thought he was fine, except when he's talking to her. Right? That stuff sucked. I liked Bronwyn's storyline because she's a mother who's protecting a child. That was fine. I did not buy the actress as Galadriel as some type of war hardened.
How do you feel she compares to Cate Blanchett's Galadriel?
Not the same. My biggest complaint is now it's going to feel like I'm going to complain the whole time. This show suffers from a stunning lack of screen presence and star power. There is a hole in this show of generic actors who do not look like they belong on something of this scope. Every time I saw, what's his name? Thonder?
Thondir?
Thondir? Is that his name? Well,
Who is
in the
it?
beginning with her, with Galadriel and the guy, and they're on the not her brother, but they're on the adventure together. They're looking for Sauron.
That
guy.
That actor sucked.
All I thought of was like,
terrible.
I was like, you know who that is? That's not Cillian Murphy. That's all it is. Whenever I saw the king from the first episode, I'm like, that's just discount Tom Hiddleston. Every single one of them was
Loki.
Every one of them is a discount version of a far better actor that they clearly, with this budget, couldn't afford. Yeah. But I'm not judging it based on
What
this.
do you mean they couldn't afford?
That's what I'm saying. Apparently they
because
couldn't.
they spent it all on special effects.
Apparently,
yeah.
I say that
I was looking at it and I was like, okay, this looks expensive. It doesn't look cheap in any way, but it doesn't look like $500 million of production.
Where
is all the money going? It's like a money laundering scheme.
There is a drastic drop in production value from episode 1 to episode 2.
And I'm curious about the decision to do a 2-episode premiere. Did they think that would hook more people in?
They would have been better off just doing the first episode.
I think so too.
First. I also want to point out that my biggest complaint beyond that is that the story is extremely meandering. It doesn't get to the point quickly. Well, they're switching
between different characters who have not crossed paths yet.
But since I didn't hate the characters, I didn't mind the meandering.
Right.
Who's your favorite character so far?
Bronwyn. No doubt about it. Bronwyn, really? She was great. Maybe I'm partial because I find that actress quite fetching.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be it.
No, and she was great in Homeland.
What did you think of her in the fight scenes?
I took the idea.
Because I know you hate when women in fight scenes are portrayed as stronger physically than is possible.
I mean, that's going to happen in high fantasy anyways. But, like, in this case, it's like mine is more about her intentions and her motivations, which are to protect her son, which I found to be very human and relatable. Mm-hmm. Whereas when I see Galadriel, all it looks like is they took a guy character and they transplanted it into a woman's role. And I understand.
I don't agree with that.
Okay. How do you interpret it?
I want to mention offhand, though, that I hate Bronwyn's, like, will they, won't they with Arendir. There's literally zero chemistry.
No, there's no
zero. You have no background of when they actually met and were, like, getting to know each other. You just have him leaving.
They look like they just got on set for the first day and, like, offered each other a donut. And
and then interrupted by the sequence where this, like, ill cow is brought to her and then he like squirts blood sludge into his hand and doesn't wash it off before trying to touch her. I was just like disgusted by it. And I just think that they had no like on-screen chemistry whatsoever.
No,
Arendir was one of my least favorite characters because he seemed to have absolutely no personality whatsoever.
It was very Anakin and Padme.
And with what you said about Galadriel,
I couldn't.
I don't think she's great or anything, but I certainly don't think that it's a case of them making a male character in all the writing, but then it happens to be a woman by coincidence. I disagree. She had her life saved by a man in. What did you think of that scene? They would have never done that if it were written to be Mary Sue type of character.
Okay, the scene that bothered me was when she gets back and her and the guy are talking about like her going back out to search for Sauron. Again, I don't remember the characters' names in almost all of this, but like it felt like one where if you had reversed the roles, it would have been a woman begging the man to stay. And this just felt, I don't buy it from her. It's the actress. I don't buy it from the. Normally, I'm like, oh, it's the source material. I don't buy it from the actress in this one. I'm not a fan.
You don't believe Elrond?
I don't believe the lady who plays Galadriel.
Trying to convince Galadriel not to go.
It just felt,
you think that's more of a man's journey?
It feels that way to me. Yeah, it does.
Okay, I feel like I don't know enough about Galadriel's character, her personality to judge whether that's believable, but I don't think it's a gendered thing as much as you're saying it was. And I also I did have a gripe with how the female characters you might have predicted this from the piece that we were reading before the premiere happened about the female cast, and they were saying, they're righting wrongs and they love the balance and how women have agency in the show. And I think they definitely have not too much agency, but way too much of the movement of the plot is just the female characters doing things and the men reacting to the things that they're doing. Other than Arendir's plot line, his subplot.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's nothing being done by men. It's all the women doing things and moving the plot along. And men are either holding them back from doing something that's
what I'm
obviously
saying.
necessary, like Galadriel and Elrond, or the men are just reacting to things like after Bronwyn took the whatever that goblin. I mean, it wasn't an orc. She took some goblin's head. Decapitated head and was like, see, I was right, now everyone needs to listen to me. And she's like, that's kind of a girl boss moment. So I'm a little surprised that you were favorable towards Bronwyn over Galadriel.
The part where the part where she comes back to the village and she argues with him about like talking to the king, not Bronwyn, Galadriel.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the actress. I felt more emotion on the face of Bronwyn than I did on Galadriel, and I understand that the point is that she's supposed to be stoic. I don't want stoic.
Yeah,
from
she's
that
an elf.
I just don't want stoic from that character. The
Also,
High King was also awful, but he's not in it that much.
I don't want to seem stupid for asking this, but like, what happened to the other elves? Why was she stranded in the ocean? Where did they go? Why? It seemed like they were just assumed into the sky.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean?
Essentially heaven.
They died?
No, I think they went back to whatever their realm is. You know, they're stand-ins for angels, essentially. Yeah.
I also
Valinor?
Yeah.
I thought that was a physical place and not a spiritual realm.
Why not both?
You're like the king of asking why not both about that.
Yeah, that is true. Well, I see.
I just
this
found
entire
it
story as a
confusing.
The
metaphor
son was
for-
also
then-
very annoying. This Bronwyn's kid was also very annoying, but that's just.
Oh yeah, he was.
The Durin and his wife liked it. I liked the whole scene with them having dinner. in the second episode.
No,
I liked it.
They
I
they
liked
had
it.
no chemistry either.
I disagree.
I thought that was fine.
I thought I saw a certain type of relationship that I've seen in real life.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
I don't know.
I enjoyed that one. I was like, when they come in and she's like doting on him and she's like, "You're gonna stay for dinner." I love
I don't
that
think
stuff.
it was
Like, he's the
immediately
one person who
obvious
can
that
do
they
that
were
as well.
married.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's obvious because he knows that he's bringing them back.
Well, of
to
course.
His, yeah, but
it
I
becomes
like
obvious
that
because
scene.
of that. But
No.
I don't think that they actually have any type of obvious chemistry
don't know, I saw it.
in the show.
Maybe I don't know.
But I
associate it with
do
something I've
see
seen in
I
real
do
life.
see the appeal of the dynamic that the woman, like his wife, is the one softening his heart,
Yeah, I liked it.
and he needs the emotional convincing
Okay,
more
when-
than the intellectual part.
When she's doing the thing where he's like basically bowing to his wife's wishes, right? I like that because it feels real to me how you would see that in the real world, right? You see that in like a boardroom scene or something out in the real world and it feels manufactured to me. Seeing this between a husband and a wife over some long held grudge, I buy that. That didn't bother me. Again, I do want to I want to point out that this is also you have to kind of go into this and know that what you're watching is like, I'm not judging it as if it's a Lord of the Rings production, which means I'm already giving them more
leeway than they deserve.
Than they deserve. Absolutely. It felt like a high budget 90s Hercules or Xena warrior princess. It really did.
It felt like a really long. You know, when you buy a TV and it has a demonstration of what the TV is capable of.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like I was watching. A very, very
Wesley,
long version of.
Who was your favorite character?
My favorite character in this? That's a.
I also
hard
like
question.
Nori a lot. I thought
Nori? I think, Nori was the best, in my opinion.
I
There's
liked
just
that plot line the most. I'll say that.
I harp the most in the show about there is an unexplainable amount of importance to the concept of an actor being able to portray something that is warm when they need to be warm and stoic when they need to be stoic. But when you have a character like Galadriel, where I understand that the plot line is that she's supposed to be like that, the whole that she's
hardened
like
by trauma of
and
war.
If I don't
loss.
If I don't buy it right from the get, right, it's very hard to pull me back in. But the characters that had to be warm and display something that felt outside of that realm, I bought into. So if they lean into those aspects, and if they were to get a different actress, and I couldn't even think of one off the top of my head who I would have liked to see. Like normally, if I tell you I don't like an actress in a role, I want to hit you with like an example of who I think would be a good person to play that character. I can't really think of one that I would want to see as Galadriel, but it didn't work for me.
The thing I was going to say before we were live that I said I was going to save is that her interactions with, I forget his name, but the man that she was adrift with reminded me of a discount version of the Northmen.
Yeah.
Between Olga and Alexander Skarsgård's character. The names escaped me. But she was like the discount version of Anya Taylor-Joy's character in The Northman.
Then maybe Anya Taylor-Joy was the better hire here.
That would have been great.
Role.
Yeah.
All of these characters felt like there could have been another actor that could have replaced him. There was at least
Some
two of them.
I just felt were completely off. Like every time I looked at Elrond, I was like, whatever he's doing, he's good at, but he's not Elrond.
Yeah.
He's discount Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, yeah, he totally is.
He's
That's
all I could see.
I think Durin might also be one of the better ones.
True.
Like I really do.
I'm also a huge fan of the guy who plays the king, Peter Mullen. He's not as a person, but as an actor, he plays Durin's father. And as soon as I saw him, I was like, okay, that's a little bit of star power gravitas there.
So there's a distinct lack of, and I do think the story meanders. But like I said, if you're just looking for, I would rather watch this than Game of Thrones most days.
Yeah.
Not necessarily this show, but I'm saying if I was to have to pick between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, I would take Lord of the Rings.
Huh. I agree with what you said earlier that this is not Lord of the Rings.
No, it's not.
But whatever it is, I don't hate so far.
Yeah.
It's a step above. I watched one episode of The Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm out. I'm 100% out. This is trash.
I'm the hardest.
I don't feel that way.
I feel like I'm one of the hardest people to keep watching something, right? So the fact that I was able to get through this without pausing it and being overly offensive. I mean, there was plenty of stuff where I'm like, I'm sure I would be offended if I was up on the books. And I understand that, but that's like, I'm in like a weird, like kind of corner of like the fan base where it's like they're not looking for me exactly. They're looking for someone who's both not aware of how awful Hollywood is at doing adaptations, but also not familiar with the source material, but also knows who Tolkien is, right? They want you to know who he is, but have not read the books and just assume that his name means relevance, which it does. Yeah. But also not be familiar enough to actually criticize it. I'm kind of those parts, but I'm also aware of how bad they are at adapting. Right. So I'm hyper acute to when that stuff is pointed out.
Yeah, I dislike that it's crafted for mass appeal over catering to the dedicated fans.
Yeah. Well, it's got like a 38.
And I think an aspect of this is like, we had such low expectations because they made a huge mistake with how they marketed this. The messaging in how they marketed Rings of Power was like
atrocious.
It was inescapable. It was almost like all they wanted to talk about, and then you actually watch it, and it's like they wanted you to reel it back in and be pleasantly surprised because it was so overpowering. How many of the actors were preaching and making heavy-handed remarks about like the social implications of their casting decisions, and the story was like, I mean, saying that the women have such agency, you don't have to say it in that, you don't have to phrase it that way. You can just say like, the women in the show play these important roles, and here's why. And
also, why gender it at all? Like these
you don't even have to comment on that. Yeah.
These amazing characters that we got to portray is automatically not divisive. Right. I want to point out. Okay, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to say it's a 3 But if they took Galadriel and they just chucked her into the molten river, into the molten lava, if they got rid of her, I think it would be a 3.5.
I don't know why you hate Galadriel's
I do not like her
so much.
I do not like her at all. I do not like that portrayal. Bronwyn, all the way. I'm Team Bronwyn today.
I want to know the backstory of what happened to the father of her kid.
Yeah. Yep.
And I hope that, I mean, I know they're going to go into it further, but I don't like the...
and yes, they had literally zero chemistry.
I don't like the pairing of her and Arendir.
I couldn't get over
at all.
Her son's voice. Like they
it
cast
was
him as
so
little
obnoxious.
boy, and it's like it must have changed right before they were filming, and it was like, Mom.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's supposed to be angsty and pubescent.
Yeah, he definitely brought that energy.
And they talk about this is actually a funny example of like where you could do social messaging in a fantasy where it's not as where it would be not as noticeable if people weren't so hypersensitive to it. Now they're like, we don't normally have relationships between elves and humans, right? And you're like, that's fine if you want to do that story, but like 10 years ago it would have been a lot like they actually didn't harp on
Lord
it.
of the Rings,
and they didn't harp on it too badly, or I expected it to be a more clumsily done
do you
bit.
understand what we're trying to say?
Yes, do you get it? But you're right. There's that dude that like her and that dude together do not have good chemistry. The bar owner
hatred for
guy
elves was a prevalent thing that kept coming up.
The bar owner guy was great. He was
kind of wish you'd put it on a shirt.
Yes. Well, that's why he's great. He's committed to the bit, right? He's like he that guy was fantastic.
Bronwyn's son's friend did a really good job of like that scene, the bar fight scene.
Oh, your mom's
he was trembling with anger.
Your mom's a slut. That's
he can't handle his mead.
It's like your mom's into elves. She's totally a bad person.
So you watched House of the Dragon, right?
Yes.
And you liked it?
I watched the first. I have not finished the second episode yet.
Well, how do you feel they measure up?
They're so different. It's very hard to.
I don't know why they're being compared so heavily. Like I don't think they're going for the same thing.
I would say that my preference here would be the Rings of Power, but that's solely based on my preferences of type of material. I would say as far as being an adaptation and probably more faithful to the material, you're probably better off with the House of the Dragon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're
both gunning for the same social message though.
But this is kind of like a perfect.
I think I like Rings of Power more on just the principle that it's more family friendly.
Yes, yeah. Like
and
I don't
wholesome
have to.
It's also less inherently
lighthearted
than political than House of the Dragon is.
And
Game of Thrones has always been political, yeah.
Well, no, like it's very obvious what they're trying to say. Whereas with this one, I was like, okay, like this one is being touted as the one that is going to be over the top with its messaging, right?
Yeah.
Rings of Power, but it wasn't.
Were they trying to get a hate watch audience intentionally? Because it feels like that.
Yeah. Well, I think.
Or are they just so up their own asses that they didn't know that's how they
the only way that they know how to communicate it is that these people are going to hate it.
The Rings of Power people?
Rings of Power, yeah.
I think they're just detached from the average person and don't realize that people hate them for talking that way. I don't even remember, like I said, for me, a big part of media, especially if we're talking a first watch here and not a rewatch, I haven't gotten a chance to rewatch it yet. I wouldn't even be able to give you a strong opinion on a story as a whole unless I can watch it more than once. When I'm reviewing something that I've only watched once, I'm going on how it made me feel, not the actual strong points. I will say that the CGI was spotty in episode 2.
I wouldn't have noticed.
Was a little bit more spotty in episode 2. I thought the first episode was good for the most part.
I'm going to stick with what I said to where like I would watch it and be like, wow, this doesn't look cinematic.
No,
like,
it looks like New Zealand.
Well, it looks like a travel commercial or a magazine cover.
Also,
there's no shadows. Like,
they
the
went
darkness
with
was bright.
Extremely like the oranges and the yellows are extremely overpowering to make it feel more vibrant. Yeah. Right.
But even that, like where like the scene with the goblin, right?
Yeah.
Is that
whatever he was? He wasn't an orc.
It was like it didn't. There was no shadows.
This is why I hate
dynamics to it. There should have been like there's nothing that you couldn't see, nothing concealed.
This is what I hate about reviewing this stuff. There's just somebody in the comments right now like that's not the name. Yeah, like there's a hardcore person.
There was a creature of some kind.
I apologize to you personally. that I
So-
offended you, but I don't know what it is. So
Do you want to keep reviewing it?
air for my
I
opinion.
don't
doesn't
know.
matter.
Maybe.
People in
I
the
mean,
chat will
tell
have
us tell us what you guys think if we should keep reviewing it. I'm afraid you might be too angry at us for not hating it.
Not hating as much as we should. Apparently, like
If you haven't watched it, you're going to be biased because the coverage of it before it came out
Yeah.
was absolutely insufferable.
And to be fair, like I'm watching it, I'm like I should hate this right now, but it's. And to be fair, it could end up that way. It could end up a complete dumpster fire down the road.
I like to
that's
think I'm
true.
good at disregarding that and
Yeah.
just
I'm
taking it for
not.
what it is.
I struggle with that. So the fact that I was
There's
able
coverage
to,
like that about literally every show.
Yep.
If it's to do hit pieces or if it's to create hype for it.
Well,
Either
that-
way, it's going to focus on the same stupid social issues.
That's why I like I turn stuff off when I don't like it because I'm not going to hate review something because I just don't think that I need to that's necessary. There's plenty of people that do that and do that very well, that are very eloquent in the way that they tear stuff down. I don't really have that capacity. I like to talk about stuff that I actually like, and I think we've been pretty fair here today, saying like, look, there's plenty of stuff to complain about, but
And to think I had to convince you that reviewing Rings of Power was a good idea because you were so afraid it would be terrible.
so yes. And yesterday I was talking to Andrew about that.
Thank God that clip that we played, that soap opera-esque
Intro.
promo clip of the cast was not actually used in the show.
Um,
But the fact that they even made it for official use, astounding.
37% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Why?
37%, because they did this themselves. I'm not even gonna say
know,
it shouldn't
but
be.
it's
If they had made this generic fantasy show number 2, the Lord of the
You could literally call it anything and not make it Middle Earth.
yes, and just make that, and you will get people that are 100 times more sympathetic to your cause. That would be a much
they
higher
wouldn't
score.
have the same street cred that would get them the viewership, so they had to siphon viewers off of an existing fan base, and they want the new audience that isn't familiar with it, so they can't criticize any errors they make in
Yeah.
continuity or character development because there is only one or maybe two characters that appear in the later films.
Which is why, like, I can't be mad at the fans for not liking it because they.
It's Galadriel and one other that is.
I don't know who the other one was. So.
forget who the other one is.
Character?
There are two characters in Rings of Power that are also characters in the other films.
Elrond?
Is Elrond in the other ones?
Yeah, it's
So-
what's
Okay.
his, Agent Smith.
So it's like they're
Hugo
keeping
Weaving.
it low stakes as far as like their potential for errors.
So
Also
they're gonna
Sauron,
milk
yes.
this forever too. This is gonna go on forever as long as they can't admit that they're wrong. If the viewer, I was half expecting the feed to cut out last night, like if it's as big as they say. So
Oh yeah.
all right,
Let's
so-
go to super
all right,
chats.
let's do it.
1000-Foot Deep End said, "Welcome to the show, Wesley."
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yesh said, sorry, roses are red, violets are blue, Mary's a Fed, and Wesley who? They want your last name, I guess.
Oh, Roth.
There you go.
ROTH.
Now they're looking up is there a Fed database where they can find out whether he's a Fed as well?
Maybe Yesh is a Fed. Johnny Derp said, "Leave it to Amazon to create Board of the Rings."
I mean, I will say
I don't
that
think it
that's
was
No, I didn't think it was
boring.
boring.
I don't think that that's an unfair criticism because I do believe that the plot, due to the scope of it, meanders. It
Yeah.
I
moves
disagree
very,
with you.
very.
It felt like a tapestry is being built from the outside and it's all coming inside. So I was like, okay, I kind of see what the pieces are going to be, and I want to go on that journey.
Depends how patient you are.
If they could just take Galadriel and just toss her away and focus more on Nori.
My only takeaway from her is that every reaction shot of her was the exact same face. It was just like
Oh, did you think that
sourpuss
they
face. lemon drops.
Yes.
That's what she had.
the shots of their faces were often way too close.
Way too close. Yeah, almost.
It was
called Nick
awkward.
downstairs to take a look at it 'cause he
Especially
hates
with
that.
Arendir and Bronwyn.
Yes, at the
Literally
well,
not
at the
even
well,
their
yeah.
foreheads and chins were showing. It was just like
But then it went back to a totally normal shot.
Yeah,
I was
and they're like,
that's better.
Why was that
It's
necessary?
almost like there was a PA in it. And they're like, you have to
It's just
zoom in,
faking
you
the
know?
intimacy of the
Yeah,
scene
well, yeah,
that
they're
wasn't
like-
actually there.
No, what they're doing is that's a
counterfeit.
shot that works fantastic if you have actors that are actually doing very well at emoting
Yeah.
with their
They
faces.
were,
Yeah.
He was a little wooden.
He's
The whole time.
I'm assuming because he's a soldier, so he's supposed to be wooden. I don't envy
Whatever.
that source material.
Even
but
when he was expressing himself, like there was no emotion.
it was like, is this his look of longing? I think this is his look of longing. It just kind of looks like he's bored.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like he's longing for much.
That
I
was
was
there.
longing more for Bronwyn than he was.
I know
I'm
you
sure.
were.
Well,
I am sure.
Well played, sir.
Real Felony said 3,000 years before Lord of the Rings, smack middle of Silmarillion.
Yes, indeed.
Goofer Trooper said, I've returned.
Welcome back, Goofer
Welcome
Trooper.
back. Sea Monkey said, quick question. The Don't Worry Darling movie coming out this month, and Olivia Wilde said the villain is Jordan Peterson. Have you guys looked into it?
Well,
Yes. We said that,
do we have an
we're gonna cover
episode
that.
for you today?
yes. Carnell said, let's not call The Rings of Power fan fiction. It's quite unfair to fans who know Tolkien's work. Let's call it what it really is, corporate fiction.
That's a very good way of putting it.
I see what you mean.
That's what we should actually somebody should coin that term. That's essentially what it is. It's billion-dollar money laundering
it's
fiction.
like calling 50 Shades of Grey an installment in the Twilight franchise. It's literally like that. Derek Null said Galadriel wasn't a warrior in the Silmarillion.
Well, Galadriel, I don't know what she was, but I know that in this
A
she sucks.
Silmarillion. Is that a misspelling?
Silmarillion.
Because they said Silmarillion. Maybe they just meant Silmarillion.
It should be called the Galadriel sucks because Galadriel sucks in this.
Jeez, you hate her so much.
I do.
I think
do.
it's really just that you enjoy different personality types.
Yes,
Yeah.
And
she looks bored all the time.
it's not her acting that's the problem. It's the fact that you just enjoy different personalities in real life.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
Perhaps.
Like Norie's or Bronwyn's.
Okay.
And not someone who is more on the reserved, serious side.
Maybe, yeah, okay. It might be fair to point out that I would have that trait in a male character would have come off better to me. That
Sure.
type of reserved, stoic approach towards battle, towards searching for something and avenging the death of your. I guess if we were to swap, and it was if Galadriel was a guy and it was his sister who died, I would have bought the kind of stoic approach towards. There's a threat and I'm the only one who knows it. I just don't buy it from this. It's just me.
Yeah. I mean, I think at least it's not portrayed that she has this disposition for absolutely no reason. Because they
That's
show
fair.
when she used to be a happy, whimsical child.
That is fair. I will give you that that
You know
characterization.
what my first thought was during that? I was like, this is what it was like for Carter growing up. Because they all.
Really?
Yeah, I just every time I look at him, I'm like, that's an elf.
That's funny.
We should have had him on today.
Yeah. Waffle Sensei said, thank you for watching this so I don't have to. Amazon said, the future of the company is riding on this project. So yeah, you won't catch me hate watching this.
Well, then maybe I have to watch it so they can continue to deliver me the stuff I pointlessly purchase at 2 a.m.
Dizwiz said, only 7 more episodes of
Guy-
Galadriel screaming Sauron bad and everyone says no, doing B-tier action-packed adventure and arc achieves nothing.
Also, I want to point just the whole thing of her, like him, like Elrond's like you shouldn't go, or he's like you can't complain, or like no one does this. Like it just didn't work. Didn't work. That whole scene where they're walking down the stairs right after she gets back, I hated it.
You know what? There was something about Thor, even when I was into it, something came along that knocked me off. Whether it was the fact that the king looks like a principal.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like
He does.
he's like unsettling looking. Like, aren't they supposed to be? You know, like they had Lee Pace in
who's
in
who's fantastic.
Yeah, and he's like a specimen, right?
Yeah,
And
yep.
this guy was like,
They do.
this guy is like stepdad.
He
material.
looks like he looks like a college professor at like a tech school.
Yeah, he is Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
A bunch of the people in this were in that.
A bunch of people. What?
We're in
that?
We're
Okay,
in
that
that. Or
makes
no,
sense.
maybe I'm sorry. I was looking up like worst things we could possibly review. I was trying to think of like things we could review that would be awful that I think people might get a kick out of, and one of them was Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
I love Abraham Lincoln Vampire,
Yeah.
like Hunter, like tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I have a great time with it, but I was like, where do I know this guy from? And I was like, oh, it's
Yeah.
him. It's not Abe Lincoln. But yeah, there's always something about it that knocked me off. Like the scene that we talked about where, what's the mother's name with the that you like?
Bronwyn.
Bronwyn. When she's protecting him, there's something about the staging of that and the action of it that I was like, this feels very TV all of a sudden.
And who's the guy that that Elrond has to get Lord Sella something?
Celebrimbor. Yeah.
That guy looks just like discount Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, or like any normal politician.
Yes.
Like their hair. There were so many people that I was like, your hair screams TV.
Yes.
Your hair screams TV.
Yep.
The kid that you said, brought the energy with the like, your mom's a floozy or whatever. The kid in the bar. I was like, TV actor. Like just
You think?
They all
just
feel
model
like
TV actor.
Why was the casting for this so random, it seems?
That is a very good question, because all of the
They could
big
pay
actors
really
are too
well.
busy doing superhero stuff right now.
Which sucks.
Yeah,
The
I know, right?
superhero stuff sucks.
Yeah.
I was like, I was trying to think of all the actors I would have liked to have seen in this stuff, but I'm like, do I really want to see them in this and see them like lower themselves to this tier? Like I said,
But they wouldn't have.
This
You
would
can
be
see.
this would be a so much better project if it didn't have the name Lord of the Rings attached to it. I would have if you okay.
They would be
if
less
you-
successful.
If you
though.
cut this budget in half, you make the CGI kind of like fairly garbage, but you tell the same
kind
story.
of Merlin.
Yeah, if you make it like Merlin, which I love.
I love Merlin.
I love that show.
Merlin was my choice for Elrond. I was like, it'd be a much better Elrond.
So like all of them, yeah. And there's an actress from the show Reign, which was a really bad CW show about Mary Queen of Scots. Her name's Adelaide Kane. She would have been perfect in this. Probably too good looking to play Galadriel. It's just me.
Why would you say that?
Well, because you also don't want somebody who's obscenely good. Like it would take you out of it.
You need
that
someone
they're-
who looks elfish, and Anya Taylor-Joy would look perfect for it.
Let's get her then.
You know,
But
who,
maybe she's one of those.
Vanessa Kirby would have been a very good.
Why there's such a bifurcation between like TV and movie actors.
Yes. Well, it's
so
a
I
big
feel like
thing.
Anya Taylor-Joy wouldn't have even taken
No,
this.
and the funny thing is in most circumstances, I prefer TV actors because I find their work less pretentious. Because I find TV less pretentious. But
They
this
were
is
trying
not-
to make this so cinematic that it
Yeah.
felt like an attempt at a movie.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. It didn't land exactly.
There's something like the Uncanny Valley.
It's almost Uncanny Valley-ish about the way it's produced.
where it's like, oh, this is amazing, but also not.
Yeah.
Also not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like amazingly not amazing.
You can tell what they were going for.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I think shooting digital was a big problem too. Let me put a caveat on that. I think shooting digital can be done well. This is not an example of that.
Yeah.
To where it's so stark and there's no depth to anything. There's no there's something about film, in my opinion, celluloid, that looks like the imagination. And if they had gone that route, maybe it would have sold a little better. And you can do that digitally. There are a few cinematographers who know how to do that, but it's very difficult to do. And there's something about like a really good example is how bad The Matrix, what's the last one called?
Resurrections
looked?
Yes.
Resurrections, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, not Revolutions.
There's something about the action and it looks so sterile and in focus, and there's no, it doesn't direct the eye.
And it goes to what you said about like there's no shadows anywhere.
Yeah.
Which I believe is done on purpose to widen the scope of what you're looking at to make it seem grander.
Well, because it's in HDR as well, so they want you to be able to see everything. And there's something to be said for the people that complained about how dark Game of Thrones was. Like, I can't see anything. Why am I watching?
Well,
So
that's
they're-
because for the CGI heavy scenes, they do that because it's easier.
Oh,
to-
But then-
100%. But they're
then
trying
you
to
have
appeal
a
to those
scene
people that
of-
hate that.
Yeah, then you have a scene of I forget now his name, the robotic elf. What was his name?
Oh, Arendir?
Arendir in an underground reservoir, and it's lit as if the sun is the sun is at the top of the cave.
The scene when they're actually
Wait.
when Bronwyn's son is in the what is it like a like a barn or something like that, and the sun is just blasting through that bottom. There's like a missing piece of wood on the door, and the sun is just absolutely just exploding through that fucking.
Chill with the language.
Effing. And it's like that's done very clearly because it's probably like they're probably on like a very public place up front. Like if you looked outside, there'd be a bunch of like set equipment and stuff like that. So yeah.
Also, people are saying Valinor is a physical place. Valinor was on the map. I know that, but my question was like, where did the elves go? And if Valinor is a physical place, you would have seen them end up there. They seem to go to some spiritual realm. Yeah. I found it confusing. So, like, Wesley was like, maybe they went to Valinor and a spiritual realm at the same time. And I was like, how is that possible? Yeah, I have no idea. Bad App said, I want to publicly apologize to Mary for using my white privilege of generational wealth to pay for super chats of toxic masculinity. I'm sorry, Toots.
Toots.
Classic.
Apology not accepted. Waffle Sensei said Wesley is right. It is both. The Undying Lands are both a physical realm and a spiritual one.
That tells me that Waffle Sensei...
That wasn't articulated.
I like this person.
That seems like Waffle Sensei also knows the source material, and he also said that like he's like thanking us for like watching it so he doesn't have to. How horrible is that? That Hollywood is so awful that people like
alienating.
That people have to like rely on other people to watch stuff because they know it's going to get ruined.
Mm-hmm. Center Conservative Mom 98 said, watching it tonight with insanely low expectations. I keep hearing that it's visually amazing, but boring and sucks. To fill space, donuts.
I would drag both of those claims to the middle, right? It's not visually amazing. No. And it's not horrible and sucks. It's somewhere in the middle.
I really do feel like they're like, we're going to make it grand. And it's going to have scope. And they're like, but we don't know how to do grand. We don't know how to do scope. We'll just end up somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's not anything to get excited about, but it's also nothing to waste your hate on.
I think you're also right. Like just the family-friendly nature of it makes it easier to digest.
Yeah.
Like you're just like, you know, like I can see myself putting this on in the background while I'm doing work. Like I'll be up here doing work later, and I'll just put it back on.
You're gonna rewatch it?
No. Okay. I'm saying, but I like if we weren't doing this, like if this was just something that we weren't reviewing, I would just have it on in the background and not be paying attention.
I generally wouldn't turn on something like House of the Dragon and sit there and watch it for fun.
I didn't want to make you watch it because I felt it might offend your sensibilities.
It would. If you thought we should review it, I probably would have grit my teeth and gotten through it. But I hate the sexual scenes that have no service to the plot. Like it's very clearly
sex position
inserted into it.
They do it so that they can convey information that's uninteresting.
Think about how many characters could have been better in this if they had gotten Matt Smith before the House of the Dragon did.
Yeah, if he had played Elrond or something.
Yep.
Adrin181 said, "Hello, crisis actors."
Hello. I also want to point out I think my biggest push against my own bias was that I liked Durin. Is her name Disa? Disa. I actually liked them together, and she was the one that I found to be the absolute most annoying in her interview. So that says something.
I hate the color contacts they put on her.
Yeah, I didn't.
It was very unsettling.
Yeah.
It's that
they put them on Aaron Deer as well, and it's just like, why is that necessary?
Yeah. Yep.
It almost.
If you want a diverse cast, can you not accept that they have like brown eyes?
Diverse eyes.
Like
yeah.
chill. Yep. Regatan said, "Is that Matt Binder over there? Binder?
Is that you? Is that who you are?
Is that you?"
I don't know who that is.
Johnny Derp said, "We, the audience, are not liberal snowflakes. You're allowed to express opinions with which I do not agree. Doesn't bother me when you're wrong."
You're
saying we're wrong?
That's fair. I mean, I'd argue that this is an opinion-based segment,
totally.
But in that I'm judging it on different criteria than like mainstay fans of the franchises. But I also understand why everyone would hate it.
Minor Zircon said, "Also attacking fans from step one doesn't help."
No, it doesn't. Like I said, they would have gained a whole hell of a lot more leeway. Thank you so much. They would have gotten a whole hell of a lot more leeway, I think, from other people if they didn't do that. But they don't know how to do that.
Bad Up said, "Tell Carter I said hi, and I'm not reading the rest of your super chat." I will do that.
No.
Thousand Foot Deep End said, sounds like what happened to the Voyage of the Dawn Treader Narnia movie. They rewrote nearly the entire story using only character names and places from the book.
Woo! That felt particularly good today. This one.
Chronicles of Narnia had a lot of potential I don't think they took advantage of.
Doesn't Netflix have one of those coming out?
Chronicles of Narnia
Is that true?
project?
I believe so.
I hadn't heard about it. There's just so much.
We were going to cover something today called
In development.
Citadel.
Somebody
that-
in the chat probably knows better than I do.
We were going to cover something today that I ended up pushing called Citadel, which is Netflix. It's a Russo brothers movie or show that is now the second most expensive show of all time. And I was like, what the hell is Citadel about? And I look it up and it just says nothing. It just
Really?
it says details withheld.
Oh, wow.
So
Bruh.
we'll see.
Wonderful. It's like a J.J.
Lane
Abrams
said,
project.
appreciate your honesty, and I'm happy it's not as bad as it looked. Still not watching that garbage. I learned my lesson as a young lad. Excited for Legend of Korra, the sequel to The Last Airbender.
Yep.
The first season of Legend of Korra was good in my opinion, but it went downhill fast. That's all.
I've talked myself out of 3.5 might have been high. So yes.
3.5 is high out of 5.
Okay,
Let's do out of 10. What do you think?
Let's stay at 5 and I'll drop it to 3. To 2.758532974.
Okay.
I'm gonna write that down.
For me, it's a 5.5 out of 10.
There
If
you
we're
go.
doing out of 10.
Perfectly middling.
Then
Yes.
I would say 7 out of
Oh,
10.
then
I
let's
still-
go back to our binary system. If this is a binary,
If it's a
if this is an
binary-
up or a down.
But my binary is based on would I watch it again? I would never in a million years watch this again of my own volition.
Neither would I.
Walker Texas Danger said, yo, first time watching PCC on a day off and happy to sit back and watch something more laid back after the Dark Lord's appearance on primetime TV last night.
Oh man, I would
Say, Andrew
imagine.
wasn't on primetime.
Did anybody see the? There was some amazing, as if you need to Photoshop it, but where they put the picture of the Chancellor Sutter from V for Vendetta. Right underneath Biden, and they look exactly the same. It's incredible.
Joseph said, good music, movies, art are the same, really, in the respect of what it brings out in you. Did it make you cry, laugh, awe, inspire, give hope, new insights? Maybe it's just me, though.
No, you're right. That's it. Maybe like you said before, the things that work about Galadriel for you that don't for me just speak more to your own personal experience and what your preferences are and what you want to see reflected in your entertainment. The stuff that I seem to enjoy, whether it's Durin and Disa and Elrond in their interactions, which I felt gave a sense of warmth, connection, and an organic nature to their discussion, or the connection or the idea of Bronwyn protecting a child. Those things, I guess, would just be what I value in watching this entertainment, and that seeing the specific changes that were made to Galadriel and the way she's portrayed, in which I feel are inauthentic, just don't work for me, but may not be as high on somebody else's value system, so they may like it. So that's fine.
Well, because of nihilism in the culture, I think there is a lot of debate over whether art can be evaluated subjectively or objectively. Are there objective standards for art? And a lot of people genuinely, in their heart of hearts, would say no these days.
I don't think there is.
And you don't think there are objective standards?
I think there's objective
Or you do?
standards. I think there's objective standards for what would be considered the right way to do something.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an objective way of judging whether it will be meaningful to other people.
For an individual.
For an individual,
Sure.
yes.
That's why I would say it's both.
Somewhere in the middle.
And I think you can find subjective value in a certain piece of media for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
That's subjective, but then it would be something objectively bad that you enjoyed for the wrong reasons.
Well, there's plenty of...
You can be conditioned to have the wrong taste. I believe that. Objectively wrong taste
How so?
in entertainment. You can be conditioned to have that.
in reference to music, to...
Anything.
Anything? Okay. I don't know. I don't know what wrong taste would constitute.
Meaning that if something is objectively bad, you would enjoy it or find value in it
B
regardless.
Movies. Like B movies. Like B movies that are very clearly not good, but you like them anyways.
No, but those by certain objective standards are outstanding and not by others. So
Interesting.
I don't know. I'll have to think about that more to be able to explain
Like me
it.
liking the Transformers movies, almost out of spite because everyone hates them, but I love them.
By certain objective standards, those are terrible, but by others,
yes.
other objective standards, they're great.
Yeah.
And then
I'd agree with that.
because of your personality, you subjectively love it.
Yes, exactly. I love
There
them.
you go.
I love them.
Javi J said, just me, or does Wesley remind anyone else of a less drug-addled Midwestern Bam Margera? Loving Cast Castle. Keep up the good work.
You're in better shape than...
That's a new one.
You're in way better shape than Bam Margera.
That's a new one.
Hobbit said, I have not decided whether to watch or not.
With a name like Hobbit, my goodness.
You should. I think that you should, and then report back.
Yeah, let us know what you think.
And also, like, tell us whether you guys want us to continue reviewing episodes or if you just wanted the premiere first impressions. Bobby said, happy Friday, y'all.
Happy Friday, Bobby.
Happy Friday. Hobbit said, fans are already under attack for review bombing.
I will say, like, when I was looking at the reviews, at least on the show on Rotten Tomatoes, all of them sound fake. Both positive and negative. They all are very, very like generic in their writing.
I showed it to my husband and he loved it.
Yeah.
Well, not fake, but are you saying people writing reviews who haven't watched it?
Or they wrote it so quickly because it like okay. I wish I should have pulled up some of them and saved them, but there was only a couple of them that felt really, really honest. But I'm not going to be able to find them off the top of my head. It's okay. Move on.
Waffles Sensei said, I thought Legend of Korra was good, but the Korra and Azumi being lesbians together was definitely a last-minute Nickelodeon insert that made no sense. I did hear that they seriously debated whether to include that, and then obviously, ended up including it. I just dislike that being inserted in children's entertainment, and I hate when adults start a cult following into a children's entertainment
Yeah.
show or movie, and then make it like they own it,
Steven Universe.
like it belongs to them or something. And
Bronies?
I hate when they do that.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more, and then we got one more, and then we got to move on because we have run long on this first segment, even with super chats.
Okay. Gross John said Jordan Peterson was also the villain of the 2020 remake of the 90s teen witch movie The Craft. It's worth watching if you like super cringe.
I have not watched the remake of The Craft. I'm not doing that. I'm not watching the Hocus Pocus one that's coming
Even
out
my
this year
most
either.
woke friends hated The Craft.
The new one?
Yeah, they hated it. Yeah.
All right, we're moving on. So, guys, if you don't know...
Whoa, it's 3:15. I didn't realize we were talking about it for that long.
Guys, if you don't know, there is currently a trend in Hollywood that we've noticed. It started the other day with Mark Ruffalo.
Scaremongering?
Well, it's not just scaremongering. It's doomsday prophesizing for profit. So this says, Timothy Chalamet says societal collapse is in the air due to social media. He gives a different reason than Mike Ruffalo.
It's funny because Timothy Chalamet is scaremongering about the end of the world to promote his movie Bones and All, and then Mark Ruffalo is using doomsday prophesying as a way to tease his role in the MCU out.
So they're like, come check out this movie. The world may not be here when it comes out. Do you really want to miss it?
That's so dystopian when you think about it. Like, come get your entertainment before you can't have running water anymore.
The Bones and All star spoke out regarding the contemporary social emphasis on Twitter and Instagram during a press conference at the 2022 Venice Film Festival. Well, if I thought the world was going to end, I know where I'd be. The Venice Film Festival. That's exactly...
I was thinking, like, this is exactly the audience that you would need to have to say something so stupid and be applauded for it. The Venice Film Festival, really any film festival, is populated by the most annoying people on the planet.
The most pretentious people on the planet.
Like, cinephile types.
Oh my God.
Hate it.
The people that I would hate because, like...
if you're a cinephile, you're not a movie lover.
No.
Even though it would seem to mean that.
You're a snob.
Yeah, you're just a snob.
So it says Chalamet stars as one half of a cannibal couple alongside Taylor Russell in Call Me By Your Name director, I don't know how to pronounce it, Guadagnino. Luca Guadagnino. Is that?
Guadagnino.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Wow.
Cinephile over here.
Look at this guy.
Set in the late 1980s. So it says, To be young today, I can't imagine what it is to grow up without the onslaught of social media, Chalamet stated to Variety. And at least there, in Bones and all, there are these characters wrestling with internal bloodlines. Oh my God, he said vis-a-vis in a sentence.
You're still staring off into the distance. All right, we continue.
Growing up with Instagram, you don't talk. It's bad
He's
enough.
saying this to a bunch of people, by the way, who did not grow up on Instagram. You grew up on Instagram, Timothy Chalamet.
It's bad enough when they talk like they're a press. Like a press secretary is releasing all of their statements. It's worse when they do it as if an obnoxious press secretary.
You are
is
an
releasing their
adolescent
statements.
on an iPhone.
He's like vis-a-vis, and then
You
you
had too much tablet time, my good sir.
Andy would love to read this because of the $5 word. Like, it's not even a $5 word. It's like singing.
He wants to feel like an intellectual around a bunch of people older than him.
Yes. So it's growing up with Instagram or Twitter, trying to figure out where they fit in with that. He clarified, I'm not casting judgment. You can find your tribe there. Maybe you shouldn't be looking for a tribe.
True.
I mean, I'm not sure.
But also, social media kind of is built so that you have to
Find
fit
your
into
tribe.
a certain category.
That's interesting too, because I actually like the top thing that it says on my Instagram profile is it says individualism over collectivism. And I heard I literally got a message once with a person who wrote like a 12-page diatribe about why collectivist societies worked, and I just wrote dude ... and then just didn't send it. I'm like, you can't respond. You can't talk.
Did
to
you
people.
read it?
I read the whole thing, and it was insane. I mean, it was like I was like.
I mean, that's a conversation for another day.
In
but,
the real world, not online.
Yeah.
So it says Bones and All is based on the novel by Camille DeAngelis and adapted by. Okay, so what do we say? Like dystopian Reagan era.
Mm-hmm.
I think post-apocalyptic, but in another era is an interesting angle. But I dislike that he's using contemporary fears of societal collapse or civil unrest or climate change, doomsday talk to promote his movie.
Yeah,
it feels cheap and slimy.
Something so not connected to what he's doing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
He says that
like from the sound of the movie is a teen romance film, which is kind of Timothy Chalamet's bread and butter and what his fan base of teenage girls is looking for.
Yep.
It's not supposed to be something serious.
So it says this is from his director. He says that he's fantastic, a great performer, and I love to see him soaring the way he is doing now. I feel proud of him. And the character is something very new for him, both endearing and heartbreaking. Additionally, he said that the true hope is that the audience doesn't reject the film as a provocation because it deals with a taboo subject like cannibalism. That's a big one in Hollywood recently, too.
They're weirdly focused on taking the stigma away from cannibalism.
They're like, we love Armie Hammer. We need him back in Hollywood.
What is
this is the
going
Call
on?
Me by Your Name director.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's like, look, me and Armie Hammer, we're good friends.
They're tight.
I wonder if they should both, like, you know what he should do is Armie Hammer should like get a job as a producer on Yellow Jackets. Is that the one about the cannibalistic soccer team?
I haven't watched that.
I don't know.
There's a show right now about a bunch of like girls who get stranded somewhere, and they're like, it's about cannibalism.
Jeez.
It'd be funny if Armie Hammer like joined as like a producer just for the memes.
We almost talked about the House of Hammer docuseries yesterday, but all I had to say about it was that Armie Hammer is not a cannibal. He is just a nepotism
A dork.
recipient dork who believes that having a weird sexual fetish is a personality trait.
So this was the full quote. He says, yet the Dune actor added, I think it's hard to be alive now. I think societal collapse is in the air. That's why hopefully this movie will matter.
And another thing he said that caught my eye was that story. Okay, he said, only this time in the American Midwest in the 80s about people that are disenfranchised in every way possible. That's the kind of story that he wanted to tell. It's so lacking self-awareness.
How so?
Because you're in Hollywood, they detest the Midwest. They
hate the
detest
Midwest.
so-called flyover states and everyone who resides in them. Not only that, but they want to own luxury ranches and properties in this area of the country too, because they're clued into the risks that are involved in living in coastal cities. But they detest Midwestern people, and they also completely disregard the real reasons that those people are disenfranchised, their hatred and the stigma placed on them being one of those reasons
They
that
think
they're disenfranchised.
They think that somehow them owning property there makes them like them, and it's not, and they're not. Not
Right.
at all.
Like the fact that you are like that that Bill Gates is like buying up farmland
that was the first
doesn't
thing I
make
thought of.
him a Midwestern or person or even an American.
Yeah.
But it's like the hatred that Midwestern people in flyover states receive from coastal elites
They think they think we're dumb.
is part of the reason they're disenfranchised, and you making a movie like this is not a way to speak to their
It's like an
struggles.
accidental
Like you still have no idea what their lives are
It's like an accidental cell phone, because what they're really doing is playing themselves cannibals.
Yes.
Not literally, but that's who is, responsible for maybe the people in middle America feeling that way. But it's more of a like, poor me. But if I put the facade that we're Midwestern, it changes what it's about. And also how they view themselves. It's like they're the disenfranchised people. Them, not the Midwest. And even the director saying, you haven't gotten to it quite yet, but that, we're not casting judgment on these two characters for how they are. It's like,
when all they do
all
is cast
the
judgment.
celebrities and filmmakers and artists believe they're the most misunderstood people in the world.
There was a guy, I don't know if anybody saw it last night. There was a guy on TV. There's a big red background, and he said that like 45% of the people in this country are detestable people, and those are the
literal
people,
basket of deplorables.
Yeah,
tier
he said that last
comments.
night. Okay, now this is the other question I have. Now we're gonna get away from race swapping, gender swapping. That's not the new marketing tool. We're gonna use mass event, like the end of the world is the new marketing tool in Hollywood. So when Aquaman 2 comes out, it's not about who's been race or gender swapped for inclusivity. I want it to be about see the movie about the ocean before your home is swallowed by the ocean.
Yeah.
Like when the new Mad Max movie comes out, they're like, do we really need to explain this one? Come see Mad Max before the world turns back into Mad Max.
Also, dystopian fears about the climate are not the fears that ordinary people in the Midwest have about the future of the country.
Because they're too busy.
They work.
Yeah, they actually have stuff to do. So I'm picturing...
But I hate the people, the artists and the elites who think they're the most misunderstood. I hate the fact that they're the ones who propagate the misunderstanding and misconception of ordinary people, and then they act like they're the victims.
Yep.
That's what I hate about
But there's no way for ordinary people to know how to feel about these events when they come unless they see the movie that tells them how to feel about it.
Right.
Yeah. That's why this film will matter.
Because it's propaganda.
So we've got Dungeons and Dragons coming out next year in March. They can be like before you chase the dragon with the opiate crisis. Come see our movie. And then we've got John Wick Chapter 4.
I can't do it anymore.
They're like gun violence. Gun violence is very bad. Come see John Wick before you get anonymously shot on the way to the movie theater. Anything could happen at the end of the world with doomsday marketing. There's any number of these movies like Scream 6, knife violence, very big in the UK. Come see Scream 6 before somebody gets stabbed on the streets.
You know something else? A lot of people have talked about post-COVID, like post-pandemic filmmaking and like how different it is, and the type of stories being written are different because of the pandemic and the like psychological effect it had on us and all that. But like it's really because Hollywood was affected by it so differently than the rest of the country. They believe that it was a cataclysmic event for everyone's psyches.
Yep.
And in reality, a lot of people went back to work immediately or just like started working from home, and it wasn't literally Netflix's The Bubble.
Yeah.
For them.
Another movie that I liked that nobody else liked.
We had to also go back to we keep mentioning it because literally it was a realistic story of so many film sets, like during peak COVID fear. Sydney Sweeney mentioned that she literally was holed up in a hotel with the rest of her cast without any other people staying at that hotel. They became familiar with like the people working there while they were filming, and they
thank you.
And they,
Woo!
you know, drank all the time, ended every day of filming in the pool together. And it's like, you literally lived in luxury at a time when people could not afford to pay rent.
Oh my God.
And you think you were the most affected by it?
I only had one waiter, and I only had one concierge.
And then they said when people started staying at the hotel again, when they opened back up, it was like, wow, they're treating the staff so terribly. It feels like we're family with them, and it's just so disgusting. Like, I hate you.
Man.
I hate
These
you.
people, man. They're just like half our job is.
Sorry that they have to have paying customers again.
Yes.
That must be so hard for you.
So I am looking forward to doomsday marketing from here on out. We're done with the race swapping. We're done with the gender swapping. We're done with the virtue signaling. We're now catastrophe. We're catastrophe signaling now.
I don't want civil war, for the record, but Mark Ruffalo and Timothée Chalamet might.
Yes, they might, because it benefits them.
Yeah.
I do like. What do you think would be like Mark Ruffalo's like on the over under? Who lasts longer during societal collapse? Timothée Chalamet or Mark Ruffalo?
Timothée Chalamet. He's prettier. So,
He's young. He's young.
You think?
Yeah, he's prettier. Like there could be somebody who, it's like set you aside.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, it's like the guy and the patient, just lock him into a room. Yeah. That's not good, guys. Don't do that. Don't do that. We don't want society to collapse. We want society to stay the way it is.
Both Mark Ruffalo and Timothée Chalamet are insufferable people.
They are. And I'm going to make this into a segment from now on. Anytime a celebrity doomsday promotes their movies, we're going to cover it. So we got some super chats.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna talk doomsday, then talk about what you're doing to prep for it.
But
they don't want people to know the resources they have.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, they always talk about this stuff. It's like, if you actually believe this crap, you would be prepping.
A lot of them are, though.
I suppose they're buying up property in other places. I want to know what Ezra Miller's doomsday prepping will be like. That will be.
I mean, he has a compound already.
He's ready.
He's in his mind, we're already there.
Libertarian hero.
Doesn't he have a cult too to keep him afloat?
Small and growing cult following. Yesh said, "Boop the snoot button, doggos and fur babies."
Oh my gosh!
I might throw up in my mouth.
Just a little bit there.
I hate that. Let's see. Carnell said, "Objectivity in film can be explained in a food analogy. There may be a perfectly cooked meal. What if it's spicy? What if you're really hungry? The dish may be objectively good. However, your personal taste and state of mind makes the experience subjective." That's not
unfair. That's like
with that.
A lot of times there have been movies that I didn't like the first time I saw it because I was in a bad mood when I was watching it, and for some reason ended up seeing it again and took much more kindly to it the second time around. And that is kind of like going grocery shopping when you're hungry and you buy stuff and later you're like, what the frick did I buy a bunch of like I do that. I buy stuff that I have absolutely I buy bologna.
That's why you have to open a package of food while you're shopping.
Yes.
So you're not hungry while you're shopping.
I buy I buy like corned beef, even though I don't like corned beef other than like every once in a while.
That's very German of you.
Thank you.
1,000 Foot Deep End said, "The only time they don't want to pass judgment is when it's something perverted."
Well, yeah, then you have to respect.
True.
You have to respect people's preferences, and oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm becoming weirdly like, I'm not puritanical. I'm annoyed at hypocrisy. Like, as somebody who doesn't care what you do in your private life and in your private time, do whatever you want to do. But don't tell me that first of all, don't talk about it like you're doing something great for society. You're just doing something. And don't brag about it and then complain when people push back on you. It's annoying.
Yeah. Francisco Sanchez Jr. said, "The sign of good content, I don't watch 95% of what is talked about here, but I catch y'all as much as possible. Party on."
That's
thank you so much for the big super chat, by the way.
Thank you. We kind of we're outside the mainstream of like the stuff that gets covered in this area. Like, I don't think any of the other channels that I'm watching were reviewing The Patient or anything like that, or talking about stuff like that. So I like the fact that we can kind of head into different realms. It helps to not be like one of those people that is not a huge Lord of the Rings or fan or something in those fandoms, which have so many people that are so passionate about what they talk about that you're not going to be able to create that same type of content. So you kind of have to build out your own style for what you're making. And I think we're creating something unique here.
Gross John said everyone should rewatch the Al Gore Inconvenient movie, not because it was right, but because its predictions are provably wrong.
It was. It wasn't climate. It wasn't global warming. Wasn't it global cooling first in the 70s, and then it was global warming, and then it's hilarious. My favorite is the one of like Nelson picking his nose, and it's like, if I give them more money, they'll make the weather better.
Bad App said, if you try human once, are you a cannibal forever? If you kiss a dude, are you gay forever? I think yes and yes.
Oh, interesting.
Waffle Sensei said, excuse me, but elites are some of the most misunderstood people. I mean, people think the elites are on your side.
They're totally
a
on
lot
our
of them
side.
do.
They're totally on our side. We would not be put in the gulag, I'm sure.
Yeah. Minor Zircon said, hit the like button, owner of pets. That's better.
That's perfect. That's better than doggos and what's
fur
the one you hate?
babies.
Fur babies, bad. I'm not a fan of fur babies.
I'd say neither.
Protracted adolescence is a thing in our culture right now. People don't want to grow up. All right, guys, we're going to get into it. So, again, there is a very terrifying figure in the public space right now.
He cries a lot. He's a very sensitive guy.
Well, I was going to give
an intellectual.
I was going to give a really mean, like over the top intro, but yes, yeah. So Olivia Wilde is basing a character on Don't Worry, Darling, on the evil conservative right-wing mastermind known as Jordan Peterson.
I'm just picturing him in like low light. He's got his hands like this. He turns around.
Okay.
It's me.
I want to point out that the first thing I thought of when I read this, I said, I'm going to go look for a clip of Jordan Peterson, and I bet you I can find a clip of him being genuinely emotional about a topic that anybody in their right mind would consider, fair enough to be
completely
discussing.
benign.
Completely benign. It was literally his most recent video, and we're going to watch it. So first we're going to read what she thinks of Jordan Peterson, and then, folks, we're going to watch this video quickly. So it says, there's been a lot of press around the upcoming Olivia Wilde directed movie, Don't Worry, Darling. Yes, and all the press is about stuff that has nothing to do with the movie. Literally all the comments on the most IndieWire cinema blend of sites, which are that should be the most like fair to her, right? Are all like, can this movie just come out and flop so we can stop talking about it? Because nobody's going to go see this. Nobody cares. So it says, don't worry. So it says, it's not all been good. Casting choices aside, they're referring to Shia LaBeouf. Wilde recently revealed that one of the characters in the movie is based on the controversial public figure Jordan Peterson. In a recent interview by Maggie Gyllenhaal, oh my God, from Interview Magazine, they went very far on the name there. That's very clever. Wilde revealed that Chris Pine's character was Peterson inspired. For the uninitiated, Peterson is a Canadian clinical psychologist, professor, and author who captured everyone's attention due to his controversial stances on gender, race, and sex. What do you think those controversial takes are?
Actually not true either. It was his controversial stance on free speech.
On pronouns, and
depends on who you ask.
Coerced speech.
Basically, he's like, I don't have a problem calling you by your pronouns. I just don't feel like you have the right to compel me to call you by something.
Yeah, coercive speech.
Totally unreasonable position, ladies and gentlemen.
His takes that are seen as political are more so philosophical because that is his wheelhouse and what he is an expert on speaking about. So, now he's like the closest thing we have to like a public intellectual.
Yes. So it says, so this is what she says. Peterson is also a favorite thought figure for incels. Oh, no. Take that, incels.
Do you remember when no one knew what that term meant or had ever heard of it in their life? Because I remember.
They literally go, they say.
I miss it. I miss when no one knew what that word meant. had ever heard it in their life.
And they put it in parentheses and explain to you, just in case you don't know. They say involuntary celibates, aka young men online who are hostile towards women because they can't attract any. Well, that's a weird way of proving that women have all the power in the sexual dichotomy of our dynamic society. Like, that literally proves that women, no matter who you are, can have a man anytime they want. Guys, not so much. Wild called public figure terrifying. Gyllenhaal's also got a lesson in the
terrifying. Imagine
you know
Jordan Peterson walks into a room and someone is in the corner just cowering in fear, like trembling.
We're gonna watch a clip of this extremely terrifying person. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, here we go.
Than you are. You could be so much more than you are that the boundaries of that are unimaginable. That's a way better message to someone who's in despair. Because what? You're okay the way you are, miserable, suicidal, nihilistic, hopeless, amotivated, resentful. That's no time for, it's no time for a maternal embrace. It is in a sense, because there's comfort in that, but mostly what that's time for is the clarion call to maturity. It's like, no. No, most of you has to go, man, but the best of you, it could come forward, and that best is there. That's way better. And so that's another thing that a father and a husband can offer, and to the wife too, It's many women haven't had a good relationship with a man, and they need that masculine spirit. That would be the animus within, from the Jungian perspective. They need that masculine spirit to say to them, you've got the hero within as well, and that you can pursue that.
I know I'm terrified.
So he's almost choking up, and his message is apolitical, and it's also secular. It says...
And positive to men and women.
It's completely uncontroversial and focused on, like, really self-improvement.
Hail Lobster.
It's self-actualization. But he is a terrifying, insane man.
So she says,
according to Olivia Wilde.
This is her interview. She says, terrifying. We based the character on this insane man, Jordan Peterson, who is this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. The incels.
The
and
incels.
She says, no. And she says, they're basically disenfranchised, mostly white men who believe that they are entitled to sex from women. All right. I can't picture if Gyllenhaal's like, what is this chick talking about? Or if she actually agrees with her. She says, and they believe that society has now robbed them. The idea of feminism is working against nature, and that we must put it back into its correct place. Well, they must be psyched. Things are going really well for them, she says, Gyllenhaal. So I love that they both take their stabs at them from the height of the ivory tower. Right. Literally from the height. Everything in our society.
Why do you think you're able to make a movie, Olivia Wilde?
Yes. Everything in our society runs contrary to what Jordan Peterson is talking about. And this lady is talking about it in a way as if he is somehow the thought leader, when every aspect of our society portrays an image of men that all of their inherent traits are bad.
So I asked the question earlier, why was the marketing campaign for Rings of Power so heavy-handed in its like social and political messaging? Is it because they're so far up their own asses that they think that resonates with people? And I think that might be the case.
Yeah,
like
they're just clueless.
They really have no idea what ordinary people think of them.
I think it's a combination of that, and they think this will sell the movie better than the movie. That there's a certain segment of the population that will say, like, she's right.
Is the wine ant population big enough to...
I don't think it's big enough, but I think...
help you make a profit?
I think they think that it
Marvel
is.
Thinks it is. Did you see Twerking She-Hulk?
Yeah.
They think...
Can we show that?
I don't know if it will...
or is that going to copyright claim us?
That might copyright claim us in the Twitter one. Didn't
Basically, there's a clip from She-Hulk of She-Hulk is twerking with Megan Thee Stallion, and she says, I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion.
Watch. I want you to go watch.
Because that's what wine ants want to see on television these days.
Wine ants? Oh, wine ants.
Wine ants. Yes.
Yeah.
When this
I was
is
thinking
when this,
like finance the W, and I was like,
No.
this is
like
the
whining.
thing where we lost these mediums. Superheroes are gone. Zach from Comics Matter did a video where he's like, you don't get them back now. Superheroes belong to your aunt and your mom and your grandma. You don't get them back. They are now mainstream, and you don't come back from that. You have to create your own stuff because these characters are now going to be debased down to the period of being nothing more than fodder. Like he actually had this really interesting description of how he described She-Hulk. He goes, She-Hulk is actually just it's a collection of all the worst elements that made you cringe about the Marvel movies, but were just kind of happening in passing. All those bad jokes that were just kind of thrown in there that you didn't really like, but that didn't ruin the movie. That's what all of it is now.
By the way, this week, I think with Hannah Claire, we were discussing the way that the MCU markets female superheroes, and we didn't really understand it as far as like the age demographic and gender that they are going for to appeal to. And we mentioned that they should like make maybe an eyeshadow palette that is based on one of the female superheroes in the MCU. And they actually did that with She-Hulk. I sent you the promotional image for the She-Hulk eyeshadow palette from Urban Decay.
They want to
and
be a
all of the
lifestyle
shade
brand.
names are like basically you go girl feminist. Like there's a green shade called Hulk Out, and then one of them is like,
oh my God, Hulk
case
out.
closed.
Oh my God,
or like
the best part of that is like
these weren't the actual names, but like order in the court, like stuff like that. It's like you're trying to make Legally Blonde, except Legally Blonde landed and was like some sentimental for people because Elle Woods is a woman.
Yeah.
And She-Hulk is trying to be everything a man can be and better.
Yeah.
I can do everything you can do better.
Yep. There's a really funny article with the writer of the show where they're like, we were gonna have like this long overarching plot of like a trial with Abomination, and then we realized we didn't know how to write law scenes. Mm-hmm. They're like, we just couldn't do that, so they weren't able to do that. Ooh. So I just want to point out that this is not the first time this has happened. If you guys remember Ta-Nehisi Coates, the whole Hail Lobster thing comes from Ta-Nehisi Coates turning Jordan Peterson into the Red Skull, basically, where he starts like his own program to help disenfranchised men. So it says this is from last year when they talked about. And
how dare he try to send a positive message to the exact cohort of people that they're complaining about?
Yeah,
right.
Well, when you're like, there's nothing to me more violent and terrifying than the idea of telling a bunch of guys to clean their room.
She's complaining that the so-called incels are blaming women for their shortcomings, while one of the main principles of Jordan Peterson's like life philosophy is accountability for yourself.
Correct.
Exactly.
That is what has always driven me nuts about this, is especially with the Ta-Nehisi Coates thing, is that the idea, the image that they must portray of him is that he is telling the young men, you're right, you've been wronged. And while there may be an element of that to it, he says, you're right, you've been wronged. The next step is by yourself. You have to make yourself better. How many times
you have to forgive people?
You have to forgive
that
people.
was one of the
but you have to
biggest things that
improve
resonated with people.
You know, like
about
how many times they
Peterson.
say, like, there's a lot of people that are like, I haven't found my person. It's like, well, what are you bringing to the table, right? Like, what have you brought to the table? And the reason that they have to misrepresent that, and that they do not like this message where you say, like, wouldn't they want somebody telling those young men that? No, because they must have that boogeyman.
And they're
They
also
must
not
have it.
listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
they know. I think she knows 100% what she's saying.
I don't.
I don't know.
I don't. I don't think she's read
Because
anything.
Olivia Wilde is exactly like the divorcee, bitter, Harry Styles.
I'm not saying she's not
loving feminist.
She doesn't believe what she's saying, but I think she would tell you to your face she doesn't want those people to be better or have a better life.
I see.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
She wants them, because they are basing their marketing campaigns on the fact that those people exist in their mind.
All right, let's do super chats.
Okay. That got me. What annoys me the most is like that she's dating Harry Styles, who is deemed to be like the celebrity redefining masculinity
they,
like defying toxic masculinity, showing men that they can express themselves and their feelings.
they don't like that. They don't want you to actually be like that in the real world. I'm sorry. They don't.
Sorry, let's go to Super Chats.
A little bit of stoicism goes a long way, folks.
Yeah. Johnny Derp said global warming or cooling are distractions. What about oceanic acidification or CO2 absorption? The rise of jellyfish is visible.
See, this is why Roland Emmerich
I don't know enough about it.
Roland Emmerich should be like, with all this, like I said, they were saying disaster marketing. He needs to start coming back and making more disaster movies that are actually good. Yeah. We need Independence Day done. We need a new version of Independence Day. It's not Independence Day. We need a new, remember, did anybody else here see Day After Tomorrow? It's about global warming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. It's like, he's like, this guy gives a presentation where he's like, he talks about how the world's going to end because of global warming. And he's like, and then the world literally starts to end because of global warming. And the guy's like, well, I predicted it would happen like a couple hundred years in the future, but the world just randomly starts to end. Well, how? Nobody really knows, but it's freaking awesome. It's got Emmy Rossum. It's great.
Waffle Sensei said Hail Lobster.
Of course. And, you know, Jordan Peterson went through a lot. That's what I feel like the worst about it is like I don't know if anybody is familiar with like the detox process that he went through in Russia, which is not even legal here, but it is very, very dangerous. And he had to come out of an extremely traumatic time in his life with his wife getting sick and everything that's going on. Like the fact that he's here is a minor miracle. And the fact that he has to take these types of, I guess not pushback, but actual insults and pot shots at him from somebody who clearly doesn't know who he is. I'm not like a huge Jordan Peterson fan, but it's like I can watch enough in like a couple of videos to know that you're misrepresenting him. Mm-hmm. It's annoying.
He's getting it from our side too.
Yeah.
Like, I saw Cernovich is done with him. Cernovich is like, this is a bitter, hateful man. I was like, what?
What?
Based on what?
On what?
That's just being a contrarian at that point.
Yeah.
Minor Zircon said, clack that like button, my fellow. I think, does he mean lobsterinos? Lobsterinos.
That's a good one. Lobsterino.
With your lobster claw. Clack it. I don't know.
Clack the like button. That's a good one.
Yesh said, twerk on that clap button, you she stallions. Oh, I hate it.
Oh man, like I said, the Marvel is becoming just the home of the cameo, and they're selling everything. Like She-Hulk doesn't exist on its own. It exists on basically Charlie Cox did really good as Daredevil, and people are literally only watching it to see him now.
Yeah, who's in it this week?
Yes, it's well, I mean that's kind of like the downside of a connected universe, right? Is it's becoming about the cameos, whereas it should be about individual stories.
You don't watch it, right?
She-Hulk, no.
Yeah, that's literally a scene in the show.
Yeah,
is that it's the cameo show?
Yeah. Yep.
They literally say this isn't the cameo show, except that it is.
It's totally the cameo show.
I hate that. Johnny Derp said, cohort, very Roman legion, Mary. Well done. I don't know what you mean.
The word cohort. You said cohort earlier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like Roman?
Apparently.
Okay. Walker Texas Danger said Jordan Peterson followers are maidenless. What is this, high school? What a brat.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's just depressing. Like
Olivia Wilde gives like running for student council vibes.
It's annoying because he is so measured and intellectual and is like if he's an extremist, then what the hell is everyone else? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's like that's what's frustrating about it. It's like you take the most not extreme person and you make him into it, and it makes me like, what the hell am I? Who am essentially very, very moderate in almost everything, and I'm somehow like worse than Jordan Peterson? I don't know, but according to them, if he's bad, what the hell is everyone else?
Bad App said, I want to be Biffles with Brett.
Granted.
Okay, Biffles,
we are now episode BFFs.
Sebastian K said, see Freedom Tunes video on Jordan as the Red Skull.
That one's great.
All right, that's all of them.
We're gonna move on, and we're gonna do Podluck, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this hilarious Idris Elba article because it's kind of all over the place, but it's very, very interesting because there's a lot of discussion points that could be had for this. So
it was almost a segment, but because goes to a lot of different directions. We decided against that.
Yes. So it says, Idris Elba slams the annoying debate over black British actors taking American roles as an unintelligent argument. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was the third one. So it says, the upcoming Whitney Houston biopic, I Want to Dance with Somebody, stars BAFTA-winning actress Naomi Ackie as the legendary singer, which means that the debate over black British actors taking roles from American actors is bound to resurface. I didn't know this was a thing until I found out about the Samuel L. Jackson one, where apparently Samuel L. Jackson doesn't take kindly to this concept either, to which I say, like, I don't think they realize how many British actors there are doing American roles.
I was confused for like how to interpret this, because Samuel L. Jackson was specifically saying that British black actors are favored over American black actors, not just American actors as a whole.
Which I think that British actors are favored over American actors as a whole.
I think maybe Samuel L. Jackson's whole point came from, because it was in reference to Get Out, which is it's a commentary on American politics and race relations and American history and American history of slavery. So I ultimately understand where he could be coming from, that it makes more sense for a black American actor to play that role simply because they are descended from slaves, and not necessarily any just any black British actor does descend from slaves. I understand what he's saying with that, but it also comes from the same representation framework, where you have to have personally been affected by something or personally experienced something in order to play a role.
Which is not acting.
Of someone who did. Yeah, I understand the criticism of that, but I was just confused with the interpretation of it, because other criticisms are just that black British actors take roles from Americans, and it's only the nationality which is relevant. You know, so like, is it the race thing or is it the nationality thing that they're taking notice of?
Because I was thinking about, like, the Get Out one is an interesting example, because yes, that's tied very specifically to race relations in America. But I was thinking about all of the British or just European actors that have done roles. Hugh Laurie, Dominic West. Who I just took like 2 minutes and wrote down like the first names that came to my mind. So I wrote down Hugh Laurie, Damian Lewis, if anybody's seen Homeland or Billions, or the underrated show Life, which only ran for 2 seasons with Sarah Shahi. You should find it online if you can. Marsha Thomason, she plays. She's from Manchester, England, and she plays an FBI agent in the show White Collar. Then we have Simon Baker from The Mentalist, Dominic West from The Wire, Charlie Cox is obviously Daredevil, and then I wrote Paul Blackthorne and John Barrowman are all British actors I'm not sure if they're all British, but Charlie Cox might be Irish.
Do you think British actors are trained in a different and maybe superior way?
I don't know if it's the training, but I know that a lot of them. I'm giving. You think it's because of stage?
How do you know?
No, I think they take acting in a much more serious way there. It's like they don't treat their actors really as celebrities as much as we do here. Whereas here, I think the people do it here to be famous, and there they do it for the love of it. Not all of them. That's a broad generalization.
They have a different celebrity culture, you think?
Yeah, big time. That's one of the
but not applied to like musicians or whatever.
Well, even there, it's more here where the British invasion was
interesting.
And like I first looked into that because Daniel Radcliffe said like the first time I came to America, people treated me like I was a god, and I was like, but there they just treated me like a kid. You know, it's like, hey, did you do your homework still on set?
You know what could be the root of that is monarchy. The fact that their monarchs are kind of their celebrities.
There's still the celebrity culture around the royals.
But the celebrity culture in America is just entertainers. Yeah. Because we don't have an equivalent of that.
Well, we do. It's.
But here they also the reason that they treat kids like stars is because they want to monetize them. You know, like if that's the reason for like a Britney Spears conservatorship or whatever went on with like a Hannah Montana or something.
I'm going to read the quote.
They're cash cows.
I'm going to read the quote here. So he says, "You know what I noticed? You said black women in America versus an English woman." Elba said, "Like being English makes you less black. To me, that defines how unintelligent that argument is. No disrespect to anyone who has that feeling. It is what it is. He continued, the fact is we're all black. You get a Scottish actor playing an Irish actor, an Irish character, or an English actor. You don't hear about a debate. But amongst ourselves, we want to point fingers because we come from a conditioning that makes people just make sure where you from. And are you authentic from where you're from? How black are you? And that comes down to the caste system, and it's annoying to me. It's really annoying. My grandfather fought in the Second World War for this country, the U.S. He comes from Kansas City, Elba continued. I come to this country, and someone says to me, you ain't American. And I'm like, huh? How dare you? Well, to be fair,
you're not American.
You're not American. But I don't,
it just means you have some special connection to America because of your ancestors.
But I don't disagree with this argument. And the funny thing is like I was making this was going to be a full segment. I was going to make I made a thumbnail. I'm like, I'm going to find the coolest picture of Idris Elba because he is better than all of these actors anyways. Idris Elba is freaking fantastic. Him in The Wire, you would not know he was from the UK at all. He is fantastic in that role. He is fantastic in Luther, where he does play a British person. Yep. He's fantastic in American Gangster. He's fantastic in everything he's in. So if he just happens to be a better actor and gets these roles, him is partially also probably because of his name, and his name carries weight now too. Yeah. When you have that level of when you've built up that much goodwill, I don't think he should have been in Thor. Yeah. But that's just me. No, I don't.
Why?
I don't.
What?
There's also a waste of him.
You don't think it sells him?
I don't.
It was a waste of him.
It was a waste. Yeah. He's like
that's supposed to be a stoic character, and he has all of this gravitas, all of this like something you could do with him, and you're like, okay.
So he finishes. He goes, "It's acting, cultural appropriation. No, that's definitely something we should pay attention to. But in the acting profession, one should be allowed to play. I don't disagree. If there is no way to tell the difference, I don't buy that just because someone's from here." That they're going to, okay, if you take a B-list actor from here who is from America and throw him into that role, into a role, I know that this isn't Idris Elba, but you throw him into Get Out, right? And then you take Idris Elba and you throw him into that same character in Get Out, I think Idris Elba gives a better performance regardless of where he's from.
Yeah, the connection should come from whoever wrote the screenplay.
Yes, exactly. And his ability to convey what that means to the actor whose job it is to convey to follow the director's intention.
Right. It's like the job of acting is no longer conveying emotion; it's representing yourself.
Yes,
which is not what acting is.
We have
that's being a spokesman.
I also want to point out that there is a difference to be pointed out between the concept of playing a character in a biopic and playing an original character, maybe from a fictional work. The example they gave, I had this old article that we were going to cover about John Boyega saying, "I want to play roles that are different from me." That's what acting is. And the example they give in here is Fidel Castro and Ana de Armas, meaning James Franco and Marilyn Monroe, and that's different because those are it's more about her accent, and for him it's more about the fact they said it's because about him not being Latino.
I thought he has clarified that he does have like Puerto Rican heritage, but he's not Cuban.
Or was it Portugal or something? I don't remember. So it says John sees it. Actors are people who play other people, and their profession was never supposed to be about portraying a character that is super similar to the actor. This all started with the concept of playing gay characters because the idea was that straight people shouldn't be portraying gay characters now. I remember Tom Hanks said something recently. He's like, they should never do that. And like the first response was from somebody who's like, I'm gay and I don't give a crap who plays a gay character.
Well, it's like you're always going to have someone who raises their hand and disagrees with it, like no matter what the take on it is.
Yeah.
Someone from the group in question is always going to veer off because individuals have their own opinions about things. Like you can't just come up with a doctrine for how to, like, what's right or wrong in these casting decisions that affect groups. Groups have different opinions about things. You can't assume that they came up with a rule for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Just don't be a weirdo who's obsessed with the identities stuff.
Yeah, you can't though. It's especially as long as Twitter is still around, that will still be a thing, unfortunately.
A tangentially related situation that comes to mind for me is the news that Nigeria banned foreign models from being in their advertising
All the post
campaigns.
responses were pretty based.
Do you think so?
I have no opinion on it.
They don't want British or any foreign models to be used in Nigerian companies' ads.
I mean, that's their choice, I guess, right? Like, I don't know. I know nothing about the Nigerian model market, so.
I think it comes from the same impulse.
But
that
also
you have to insulate people.
The impulse
from
I
each
see
other.
from this is it's just another way to, it's tangential, not tangential, adjacent to the body positivity movement, to where,
Really?
where it's like not the case of Samuel L. Jackson, but the other people that it quotes are like lesser known actors, right? Saying like, oh, this is why there should be less obstacles between me and what I'm trying to do. It's not about any actual, like, I really feel this in my soul that an American should be playing this role. It's like, what can I say that people will feel obligated to agree with that will have less obstacles between me and my success?
Okay. To me, it's like I see British actors taking roles all the time, but the difference was that this became about it became racialized through what Samuel L. Jackson was talking about, and I don't think that makes it any more of a compelling argument. I think if you're the best actor for the role in that role, and it's not inherent to the character, then it should be fine. If they can fake the American accent, they can fake the American accent. Maybe the Americans are just jealous that they can't fake a British accent.
I thought it would be easier going from American to British, because.
Did you ever hear that Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider accent?
But to fake an American accent, it takes a lot of like shaping your mouth completely differently to be more like nasal, more like open, and then like a British accent would require you to like close your mouth more and like angle it differently.
To be fair, they usually do a very generic American accent. It's not usually regional to any specific. Like when Hugh Laurie does his accent in House, it's just generic American accent one.
Increasingly,
you can't say
the death of American dialects and regional accents is because of mass media.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because
That's
you're hearing voices.
Tragedy in and of itself.
Like I got a lot of crap when I came here for saying I sounded like I was from Minnesota, and I was like, I don't really think that's true.
I don't think you do at all.
You don't at all.
And then I don't hear it, but then my dad totally still does, apparently, because somebody like heard me talking to my dad one day, and they're like, "Now your dad, holy crap, he sounds like he's from the Midwest." So, I don't know. I think it's an interesting discussion to be had, but it does feel like it's just constantly segregating farther and farther downward until the only person you're going to be allowed to play is who you, is like.
Yourself.
Eventually, you'll have to play yourself in your autobiography, in your biopic, but you just have to first get famous enough to have a biopic made about you, which at this rate could be anybody because they're making biopics about literally everyone now. So, all right. Do you want to do Denise Richards?
Yeah, I guess.
It's sad. Do you want to read this one?
Well, a lot of people want to do Denise Richards.
Do you want to do Denise Richards? Nah. Somebody will super chat that.
Denise Richards' husband is helping her create OnlyFans content because he knows what guys like.
Apparently.
Now, this is a development that she only has an OnlyFans because this was a gesture of solidarity with her 18-year-old daughter, who made an OnlyFans shortly after turning 18 and received very weak, tepid backlash from her father, Charlie Sheen, over it. So he said, she should keep it classy and, don't reveal too much. As long as she's able to be creative with it, that's fine. But I don't know if I feel comfortable with it. He had to completely walk it back. And because they had to use this situation and the controversy about it to bludgeon each other personally, Denise Richards went and made an OnlyFans to be in support of her daughter and show that anyone can do this at any age. And it's undignified and just super weird. It feels like you shouldn't be doing that even under the same roof as your child.
The funny thing is there's been a lot of ones that I found that they're not doing it. They're not doing nude content. They're just doing like bikini pictures. And my argument there is look, if you can find a bunch of dudes to pay money for that when they could find that for free literally anywhere else, go. But
I think it's not about that. It's that they have notoriety already, and that's what draws people in to pay for the content. not just that they're taking their clothes off, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's the fact that it's Denise Richards.
Yeah.
Or it's the fact that it's, I forget what her daughter's first name
Sammy
is.
Sheen. Sammy Sheen.
It's the fact that it's celebrities doing it that draws people in, not just the fact that it has like a lewd nature to it.
But she is going to do nude content, and that surprised me. Like, I don't think she even needs to. Like, with her name recognition, I don't think she needs to. It says...
no, but it's the desperation for attention and relevancy that leads to this extreme.
She says, so will you do topless, Lewis asked. She says, yeah, I feel we've already got that they're already out there if you Google them, because when she was younger. She said, Richards, who has appeared in racy scenes and photo shoots over the course of her career, clarified that some photos on the internet that are purported to be of her are altered. Well, we're not going to go looking for those live on air, guys. Not on this Wi-Fi connection, anyway. The only thing Richards admitted is that she was surprised to learn that her daughter had joined OnlyFans. She went on to say that she thought Sammy was doing well with it. I feel like it falls into like mini-me syndrome, which is like as things get older, women don't want to admit that they're aging and that they want to
live vicariously
through their kid.
their younger
and they're like,
daughter.
Oh my God, you could be sisters.
I hate
oh my
it.
God. You could totally be her sister boss queen slay.
It's so gross. And it's I know that this happens with like people who aren't famous too, but being famous and having a social media platform to go with it exacerbates the problem extremely.
Yeah.
So she's like desperate for the attention that she gets from this, and then like sharing that with her daughter, like the whole spectacle of it.
Yep.
And the fact that her ex-husband is not even allowed to speak out against it.
No, because then he would be he's somehow
suppressing
he's
their
oppressing them.
freedom
He's
by
oppressing
doing
them.
so.
Which is embarrassing that that's how they see it.
It's so scary that also they still have a daughter who isn't 18 yet, and she's
I didn't
watching
know
all of this
that.
happening.
I didn't know that. They
Yeah.
have a child that's under.
I think she's like 17.
So she's for a fan. Like imagine being that kid, and you're like, I want to go to college and I want to work in STEM.
And they're like, really? You
Why-
can make so much more money and get so much more attention if you join your older sister and your mother with selling your pictures of your body online.
It's
Like what?
Unreal.
Whatever happened to like, the traditional view of being a girl boss? Even this the second wave feminism
There is
type,
that's too much work.
Go
now.
to the office.
There's too much patriarchy to do that. They have to, and the air conditioners are.
I was literally about to say the air conditioning thing.
Yes,
we're becoming too similar, Brad. It's getting
Yes.
scary.
The air conditioning is out to get you, which is funny because I once watched a video that said that air conditioning was actually what brought us women in the workplace. Like they didn't want to, like women didn't, they didn't want women in the workplace until finally they're like, oh my God, it's finally cool in here. Like but now it's like, now it's too cold in here and I don't want to wear a long sleeve shirt in the summer.
Air conditioning did a lot of things. It's interesting.
To be fair, Mary did beg me to turn the air conditioning on today.
It's been boiling up here towards the end of the shows. I'm okay now.
Mary, that's not very girl boss of you to ask for the air to be on.
It's actually very manly.
It's very manly of you.
I should be clinging to a cardigan and like freezing my ass off right now.
Exactly.
If I were a real woman.
Exactly. All right, we're gonna do Womp Womp Womp, and it's a good one. We moved it. We were gonna put this in the Lord of the Rings segment, but it becomes even more clear why it's Womp 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 when you.
I think this is kind of adding to your hatred for Galadriel, at least.
Rings of Power actress says, I needed therapy to survive violent scenes.
This is Morpheed Clark, who played Galadriel,
More like
by the way.
Borefeed, because she's boring.
Okay, that's taking it too far, Brett.
If you can't beat them, train with them.
She said, I would flinch a lot when people came at me, so they did exposure therapy with me, where I would have all these huge men running at me, screaming with swords to stop me from looking frightened, because I've definitely been cast as the victim, and Galadriel is not that.
They're actually proving the point of when I say that it's unrealistic to see a character like this. She's actually proving it by explaining this.
Do you mean like that a woman wouldn't react the same way to?
I'm kidding. I'm half kidding. But yes, she has to be trained to look at it this way.
Well, it's also that she's playing someone who has already seen violence and been in battle and wouldn't be fazed by these things. So I understand like why she would need to get used to it at first.
Well, you're adding logic, and I don't want to be logical right now. I
love that the headline frames it as like, I was so traumatized by the violent scenes that I had to go to therapy afterwards to talk about my fifis.
The 33-year-old Ring's role is different from the other types of jobs she usually books. Clark is most recognizable for portraying a traumatized nurse in Saint Maud, but also has been a fan of Tolkien's franchise. I'm sure she's read every single book 1,000 times over.
Just like the obscure superheroes that like whoever plays them is like, this character's been special to me ever since I was a little girl.
I grew up with them, even if she didn't realize, like, because none of these girls want to admit that I grew up playing with Barbie, because that wouldn't be very feminist in 2022. Only Margot Robbie is woman enough to admit that she grew up loving Barbie.
I love that someone like Margot Robbie could never play Daenerys or a Galadriel or an Olga.
Why?
Because she's so like quintessentially modern and American.
Yeah.
And this is something I actually said about Addison Rae the other day to Dane. She has the look of like when someone posts pictures of their mom from the 80s and everyone's so like shocked, like, whoa, your mom was hot in the 80s. Whoa. She has that vibe.
She will be that when she gets older. She says, I would flinch a lot when people came at me, so they did exposure therapy, where I would have all these huge men running and screaming at me with swords to stop them from looking frightened, because I've definitely been cast as a victim. And I do want to point out that the framing of the article is
it's definitely
Chef's
doing
kiss.
a lot to make her look like a frightened deer.
Like, do you think these celebrities ever read this stuff? She's like, that's not what I said.
I'm sure it would drive me crazy.
Yes.
Like, they ask a lot of leading questions and twist around their words and headlines to make celebrities look more annoying than they are, but sometimes they do deserve it.
Yep, that's. I mean, they're all part of the same self-perpetuating system of all these things. So, therapy for Borfeet. What's her name?
What?
Morfydd
Clark.
Borfeet Clark. I am unruly in my interpretation of Galadriel today, guys.
Maybe you just hate reserved and serious people, which means you secretly have a problem with your co-host.
Is that what it is? I'm just like, every day I'm like, I wish she would be a little bit more like not reserved. Is that what I'm?
I'd be more like Eleanor Brandyfoot.
Bronwyn. Bronwyn was the one that I liked. Bronwyn.
Nori is a good character though. Like Nori was my favorite overall. I thought she was fun.
Hey guys, we're in the spin-off age. Let's get the Nori and Bronwyn spin-off.
Please no.
Let's go.
We need a spin-off of the prequel, and then the spin-off is gonna have a sequel.
It'll be called Norwood.
I can't do it anymore.
Norwin. Okay, let's do super chats.
Chen Rezeg said, for Brett, greatest reader in the history of readers.
Look, leave me alone, okay?
Now you're just bullying him, guys. Maybe he meant it. I don't know.
Some days are better than others. Usually when it's reading quotes, it's worse.
It happens to everybody. Bobcat said, have any of you watched the movie or read the book LA Confidential? I miss when movies told real stories.
I've seen the movie. I have not read the book, and it's been a very long time.
Movies still sometimes focus on real stories, but they don't make as much money.
Also, I want to point out that the cover of LA Confidential is one of the most iconic covers you'll ever see in Hollywood. If you look at the cover, you'll end up recognizing it, even if you haven't seen it.
Jacob Edler said, please expand outside of American pop culture and check out RRR. Best movie I've seen in years.
I haven't watched it
Indian
yet.
buddy action movie. No American woke crap.
I've heard that it's very, very good from several people, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet either.
Nessa Ludden said, not British, but Kelly Riley plays Beth Dutton on Yellowstone. Best role. She kills it on the show. No one would have guessed she's English.
Yep. There's a lot of them do it very, very, very well.
Yeah. But when they don't do it well, you really notice.
I mean, I can't think of an example of like a British actor who can't really do an American accent. I can think of a lot of examples.
Because they don't get cast.
Yeah,
they can't
I can think of a lot of Americans that can't do.
At one point, it was James McAvoy, but
he couldn't.
No, and Wanted.
Oh
hold it
yeah.
together.
Okay,
He
no,
could
good
not hold it
point. Yeah,
together.
that's a good point.
And it drove me crazy. But he nails it now.
Or what's her name in X-Men? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Which X-Men?
I don't remember.
Like Sansa?
No.
No.
Move on.
Okay. Nessa Ludden said OnlyFans is the new digital version of Maxim magazine.
Which is funny because we had that thing we talked about recently where Alicia Cuthbert's like, they wanted me to do all of these men's magazines. And it was very, very bad because they don't want to be objectified. And these ladies are like, I will totally let you objectify me. As long as I don't have to get up and, as long as there's no commute to the objectification, I will take part. But I'm not driving more than down to my living room to be objectified. I'm not.
1,000 Foot Deep End said that therapy framing is top tier.
Chef's kiss.
Great stuff. Bobcat said, did you know the reason so many action movie characters wore sunglasses was to hide the noticeable flinching whenever they fired a gun on screen?
That is one of my favorites is like how bad most actors are at not closing their eyes when they pull the trigger multiple times. There's a hilarious example of like in like one of the earlier seasons of Bones, David Boreanaz just cannot keep his eyes open when he's doing it. He's supposed to be like he was like an Army Ranger, so like he definitely would not be doing that. Also, a lot of them, they've gotten better about trigger discipline. They're not as bad about walking around with their hand aimlessly on the trigger. But even then, a lot of times they don't keep it high up on the frame. They keep it like right outside the trigger guard, and that's one of those things that I understand it's being annoying and nitpicky. But I point, I'm like, look at that, that's so stupid. God, don't they know what they're doing?
Hobbit said, I'm sure every girl read Lord of the Rings and imagined themselves as Galadriel, warrior princess.
They weren't reading Twilight, I'm sure. They were reading Lord of the Rings and...
you know what's funny? I read all of the Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit, and I haven't read Twilight, but I have been meaning to reread them as an adult so that I can appreciate them more, and then also, like, maybe save the films for after reading them again.
I don't know if I would like the book. I'm sure I would, but like I haven't only seen the movies.
I enjoy C.S. Lewis fiction more, and that's not the popular opinion.
Well, we just did a whole segment on not hating Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, so we're not here for the popular opinions, man.
Right. Joe Jiraki, a.k.a. Jay Dizzle, said, remember 25 years ago when ABC broadcast a live version of Cinderella with a mixed-race cast? Of course you don't, because it wasn't forced and stars were cast for their talent and not their identity.
I don't remember that, but I certainly remember when they had Brandy play Cinderella with Chad Michael Murray, and that was also really good because she was a legitimate star at that time, so it made perfect sense.
What year was that?
I would have been it had to be, if not the late 90s, the early 2000s. She was on Moesha, and she also did, she survived in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So she was a legitimate, Brandy Norwood was a legit. Oh, did I make like a joke about Norwood earlier about Nori and Bronwyn, and I meant to say Norwin? Yeah, Brandy Norwood was an R&B singer. She did The Boy Is Mine with Monica back in the early 90s. You were
that's a good song.
There you go. Oh my God, you got your 90s street cred, even though you weren't even you were but a gleam in your parents' eye at that time. But yes, she played Cinderella in that movie, and a lot of people loved that version because you weren't having it shoved down your throat that she was changing society by playing that character.
The 2015 Cinderella movie was really good, in my opinion. And not what you would expect it to be for the year it was made. But the Camila Cabello one is a crime against humanity.
What you really want to watch is the weird Beauty and the Beast crime drama on the CW starring Kristen Cruick, which is hilarious and actually fairly entertaining.
Waffle Sensei said Eggs Benedict Cucumber Patch can't do an American accent.
Oh yeah, he doesn't really do it super well.
No,
it's not terrible.
But it's just kind of generic.
If you don't notice that it's off, then I think you're fine.
I've never been able to separate. He was on a show with Hugh Laurie where they were father and son, and I've never been able to. I just that's just MCU house. Like that's all I can see.
MCU.
And he has the same gruff kind of like, I don't care about anything. And it's like, it really is.
He was in a Hugh Laurie did a. It's like one of those things that I got really into Bosch at one point, and at that same time there was a show coming out called The Night Manager, which got rave reviews, and I got through like the first 2 episodes and I never finished. And every weekend I'm like, I'm gonna finish it, and I never finish it. Maybe this will be. We got a long weekend this weekend.
That was
maybe
Hugh Laurie.
in The Night Manager.
Okay.
He's not the main character. He's like the drug kingpin. He was also in a show called Chance on Hulu, which I got through the first few episodes of, but it has like Diane Ferris or whatever, and I haven't really watched much of her outside of the show Numbers, which is a classic procedural that I really, really love. So continue.
1,000 Foot Deep End said, I hated the character of Perry in classic Doctor Who largely because of the actress's terrible American accent. Although I liked the new Doctor Who a lot at the time, like in middle and high school, I wasn't encouraged to watch the old one. I was more like encouraged to watch like Twilight Zone, and like other classic TV shows.
What is a classic show that Mary loves? Everyone knows that I love all sorts of random stuff. What is a classic show that Mary loves?
I don't know. Like I appreciate all of the Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith show.
Ah, real like actual
Dick Van Dyke shows,
Lucille
my
Ball.
favorite.
like Me
Oh,
TV classic
Dick
stuff.
Van Dyke.
Yeah. I appreciate all of those. I don't know. It's hard to come up with some more on the spot.
I've been mentioning one a lot lately. There's a show from a couple of years ago called Grimm that a lot of people didn't like. It got 6 seasons. Very, very good.
Yeah. it
Bitsy
is.
Tulloch and David Giantoli, very, very good with like the lore of like it's kind of ridiculous in the interpretation, but it's very, very good.
My mom loved that show, and my friend that was in the Terminal List was also in Grimm.
Really?
Yeah.
Like one episode or a couple?
Yeah, there's an episode about a model who is getting thinner and thinner. and weaker.
Yes.
That's her.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
She's single? No, I'm just kidding.
She is not. She's married.
Ah.
Darth Doza said, it is the height of irritation that work does not allow me to pursue real priorities like watching PCC.
Well, that's what I'm talking about right there.
You can just watch us while you're at work.
Yes, we want you to watch.
Surreptitiously.
We want you to. I'm trying to like. Whenever you like watch, like, do you ever see like the people who complain about like employees at Walmart who have like headphones in their ear? Because now we're in a culture now where like you just always have like a headphone. I used to get in deep trouble for it, for always having a headphone in my ear, but it was never actually a problem because it would always go in my bad ear. So it's not like I couldn't hear people if they were talking to me. But now I don't think I go to a regular working place where they don't have a headphone in their ear. It doesn't bother me as long as they can, as long as it's like not a, like they're not doing their. If they can see me, that's fine. That doesn't bother me. But it's like there's like a video of a guy who's like it was like a TikTok video where he's like really annoyed that this cashier has a like a thing in his ear, and so he takes a pack of gum and he puts it on the very back of the conveyor, and it just slowly comes, and the dude just doesn't make any movement to go grab it at any faster pace. He just lets it come there, and then like when he gets it, the guy gives him $100 bill. I was like, what a freaking douche. Who does that?
Hobbit said, Hogan's Heroes and Andy Griffith Show for the win. Not familiar with the first one.
No Hogan's Heroes?
Someone else said Hannah Montana is Mary's show. I did like Hannah Montana.
Is that your
It
show?
was totally my generation.
I'm shocked that you liked New Doctor Who.
Yeah, I think
loved it.
9, 10, and 11, and part of 12.
Russell T.
but
Davies, the
most
guy
of
that
12,
ran
no.
those.
Who's good at-
surprisingly based.
Surprisingly
What?
based.
Yeah.
Hmm,
Russell T. Davies, yeah.
didn't know that.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we're going to talk about this off air. In what way? Thank you.
Have you seen The End of Time, Part 1 and 2?
No.
No? Okay. We could do it off air.
Okay, we'll do it off air. All right, there's one more.
And Bad App asks, what are Mary and Brett's top fave movies and shows? I was thinking that Brett needs to make a list of like the 100 top movies on his list, like even the random ones that you wouldn't expect. The Brett Dasvik like official movie recommendation
It would be
list.
very, very, very,
because
very
it's
hard.
it would be eclectic,
It would
I
be-
think, and I think maybe like a top 50 TV shows too.
Because there's more shows that I like than movies.
There are a lot of like weirdly like unexpected things that you like.
Yeah.
I don't think I could come up with as long of a list because I'm so much harder to please.
Yes. My number one answer that whenever this question comes up is Person of Interest, starring Jim Caviezel and Michael Emerson, is one of my favorite. It starts out as a spy police procedural and slowly becomes an incredibly well done sci-fi or like science fiction artificial intelligence epic that I really do recommend that everyone go watch. But every time we have a question like this, I then get done and I go to my room and I think of like 55 to 60 more things.
Which is why I want you to write it down.
Maybe I'll make
and
a
you
list.
Can write one way longer and just narrow it down.
Do you watch Westworld?
I'm not watching Westworld.
Oh man, it's
I
the
watched
same path as Person of Interest.
Yeah.
Both Jonathan Nolan.
Jonathan Nolan's great. He's him and like I kind of get the feeling that I like him working outside of the reins of his brother, like not having to work because his brother gets all the credit all the time. But I also I liked Tenet and everybody else hated Tenet.
I liked Tenet.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Number 4.
You got one more
Or 5.
4.
Andre XP said, Mary strikes me as an adorable person who hates to be called adorable, but she's adorable. Enjoy your weekend.
Would that be a fair assessment?
They're almost like compelling me to compliment myself because I'm the one who reads the super chats.
You're like, yes, I am adorable, aren't I?
No, I take compliments well. Thank you. 1,000 Foot Deep End said, Hogan's Heroes is a 60s series set in World War II. You know it's good when your German exchange student gets into it. LOL. That's funny.
I also want to point out that most of the shows that I loved were network shows. Like I wasn't like The Wire wasn't a network show, but a lot of them, like House, I think is a classic show. But most of them, in fact, you know what? Next week I'm gonna come up with a list and maybe we do a segment on it in Podluck of like movies and shows.
There's a lot of gold hidden in 2000s crime shows or like.
Yeah,
spy related
and sci-fi and
shows.
Or like less pretentious sci-fi that was not.
I was just thinking about Gattaca.
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah,
I really liked that movie.
Even that's like more highbrow.
That's a little pretentious. But
Yeah,
I like
I didn't think of it that way at the time.
Like I have a friend who really loves Farscape, and I'm like Babylon 5.
I'm a big Being Human guy.
What?
Being Human?
I've yet to watch the American version. I need to get around. I need to get around to watching.
Someone just said Burn Notice is awesome. They are a man or woman or non-binary individual after Brett's own heart.
Yes, that is anybody. If I could give you a number one recommendation, it would be Person of Interest and Chuck. Go watch
Chuck
Person
is awesome.
of Interest and Chuck. Chuck is also surprisingly based, given that Adam Baldwin's character he leaves for work every day and salutes a picture of Ronald Reagan next to his bonsai tree. It is a masterpiece in kind of
Adam
like
Baldwin, very based.
Oh yeah,
very based.
Started Gamergate. Came up with the term Gamergate. Adam Baldwin's great. He's on the show called The Last Ship, which I'm in the middle of like watching. I got through the first 2 seasons, and I'm also watching a show called Boston Legal, which gives a surprisingly good balanced view between what Democrats and Republicans used to be before the world went nuts. Yeah. So those are some suggestions for today. So, all right, and I think Brad,
I'm not reading that. Sorry,
I knew
happening.
I knew you weren't going to read that one. That's okay. All right, guys. Wesley, thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
If anywhere.
If anywhere.
If they can't find you, then that's okay too.
I would say check out Cast Castle, and I'm findable on the internet.
You're gonna make it harder for him. He's playing hard to get, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm findable, but I'm not very entertaining there. So.
That's all right. That is all right. Mary, where can they find you?
You can find me and send me hate mail at Closer Kitty on Instagram or WeChat. And whenever I post articles on timcast.com, I promote them there. Go criticize them. Hate me.
And there's one more super chat there.
Let's see. 1,000 Foot Deep End said, tell Lydia to get Adam Baldwin on IRL. Oh, and Johnny Derp says, person of interest, they're interesting. Really? No, not really. What?
That show is.
Is that the angle of the show?
That's the show's the concept of the show is essentially the character of Finch develops an AI program that can predict terrorist actions before they happen, but because he doesn't want to give the government that much power, the only thing the government gets from the machine is a social security number, and then it's up for the government to figure out whether the person's a good guy or a bad guy. It's a fascinating premise that they actually execute very, very well throughout the seasons, and it grows more intricate as it goes on, and it tells a very human story, a very tragic story of John Reese, of Jim Caviezel's character of John Reese, who is he comes to the fate you would expect to at the end, but it's done beautifully. So I recommend everyone go watch that. Guys, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Brett Dasovic. For the show, we are here usually Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. However, we will be off Monday. Is it Labor Day? Is that
yes,
what it is?
Labor Day.
We're taking Labor Day off. We're going to do that. I actually would have no problem with working, but I don't feel it's fair of me to...
I'm going to wear white on the Tuesday show after, because that's a faux pas.
Wasn't that the thing with Obama? He was wearing colors before a certain day of time of the year. I remember that.
Know.
Somebody might remember. He wore like brown when he wasn't supposed to wear like a color that he wasn't supposed to wear. I don't remember.
Not his job.
It was a long time ago. All of 2009. That was like a long time ago, guys. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. We'll be back on Tuesday for the show. If you'd like to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at popculture_show, Facebook and TikTok at popculturecrisis, and on Instagram at popculturecrisisPod. And if you'd rather listen rather than watch the episodes, we are on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify. It has been extremely awesome hanging out with you guys today. We will be back on Tuesday. We'll see you then, guys. Bye.
Bye.